we get to have the top salsa dancers in the world come represent New York style salsa on 2.
Salsa on 2 is a New York style of salsa that my father helped structure back in the 50s and 60s. Our ancestors weren't born here. They came from all different parts of the Caribbean. It's our job to literally represent and go hard. In Carnaval, we had the Dominicans, and they had their folkloric dance. The Mexicans, which had their dance. The Colombians, which they're known for the Caleño style. So Carnaval was that one piece that we had to really represent each culture. When the Spanish conquistadors went to Africa, they took all these slaves and they allowed them to keep their music. And out of there came a list of rhythms such as cha-cha-cha, mambo, song. We fuse everything. So like even the salsa, this is song. Yeah. So we mix salsa with song, with limba, with Cuban.
In order for us to teach them, we had to show them the timing. There's on 1, there's on 2.
Salsa on 2 lives in the rhythm that the conga plays. So this slap, it dictates where to break forward and back.
I called her auntie, but she's not really my auntie, though she practically raised me. She's basically my family now. You're probably thinking, what kind of Asian is he?
You speak such good English. Where are you from?
Well, do I have to explain? To Chinese or to American, it's kinda hard to maintain. To keep my culture and name, yeah, reach for something greater. I hope you're writing this down, I'm gonna test you later. Our parents sacrificed just for an education. This culture's got the pressure on the Asians. My friends have started stepping up and picking up their midlife crisis, catching up. It's gotten mad competitive to live with just enough. In the heights, I take the lights.
You gotta be so proud. And you played the role that Lin-Manuel played when it was on Broadway. Did you get nervous when he came to set, or when you were like?
Nah, he was there all the time.
Yeah.
It was good though.
Yeah.
It was good to have him there. Like people always like, yo, did he give you advice or anything? I'm like, yo, he literally said nothing. He was just like, yo, do your thing, Papa. Like, yo, get after it. You know, like just tell the truth. And
but I mean, it's almost like I heard him quoted saying that the role was actually kind of meant for you, even though he wrote it for him. He didn't know you at the time, and you blew me away on this one, man. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I want to show everyone.
Gorgeous, Linda, tell me something I don't know. It's like the dirge version. Vieja, sucia, cabrona.
It's the reprise they do after all the tragedy that befalls the beauty salon.
After everyone left and no one said goodbye to them. Remember how that was a big moment for Carla? It was like, no one's saying goodbye. No one wants to take the train to the Bronx.
Carla got done extremely dirty in this musical. I want to talk about it.
I can't wait because the entire time we kept just being like, Daphne Rubin Vega is great as Carla and I want more Carla.
I thought Daphne Rubin Vega was Daniela.
Oh, yes, Daniela. Sorry, I'm mixing up Daniela, who owns the salon, and then Carla, who is...
Her lover?
Her lover?
Question mark?
Is that Dasha or Stephanie who plays?
Stephanie.
Carla. Okay, gotcha.
Dasha is... Kuka.
Okay, Daniela is the salon owner. Okay, she got done dirty, but I will wait to discuss that until the end. It relates to the end of the musical, so I don't want to talk about it yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Welcome back to another thrilling episode where we discuss...
For longer than the actual movie.
Than the actual runtime of the film.
That's the challenge now. We got to get there.
Yeah.
We've had a great run, so I feel like why stop now?
Yeah.
It's a long boy though, this one. It's a lengthy boy.
It is a lengthy boy. Something I will never say again for the rest of my life. Molly, how are you? How are you doing? I don't mean to ask you a question right while you're taking a sip of tea, I'm assuming.
That's okay. I'm doing pretty good. I think I hope that when y'all are listening to this, the pandemic feels like it's ebbed instead of flowed. It seems like we're moving in that
Mhm.
direction, but I feel like I'm in a place right now where I haven't interacted socially with another human being in the same room for about 2-ish months. So struggling a little bit with that right now, but I'm really hoping by the time this comes out, I'll be having a ball of a time. So looking forward to that. What about you two?
Looking people in the eyes in real time,
Yes.
giving a full up down because it's like, oh, that's what you look like below chest. Ah, I see.
Mhm.
Can't wait. We're good.
We just had a fight
We just had a fight. You saw.
that Molly witnessed.
Just
Listeners are jealous. They were not privy.
Yeah, you'll have to join the
Was that a fight?
Patreon.
I think
for
fight is
that.
a strong word for what I just witnessed. I think
truly
it was
was.
it was a tense and quiet moment is how I would describe it.
It was just an older married couple bickering at each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
It was very that
Which is the
energy.
goal, so
That's my sueñito.
My little dream.
My little dream.
my little dream.
Things are well for me. Thank you for asking. Okay. RJ, your challenge this week is to we say 1 minute, but much like the runtime of this podcast, it'll probably go over. So your challenge this week is to, in a minute, succinctly sum up for those who have not seen In the Heights, John M. Chu's In the Heights, released in 2021. Starting now.
Okay, In the Heights is a movie musical about the lives of a vibrant Latino community living in Washington Heights in New York. The story centers around Usnavi and his bodega, who dreams of leaving New York with his cousin Sonny to live in the Dominican Republic by the beach. His crush, Vanessa, also dreams of leaving the neighborhood to live downtown and pursue a fashion design career. Kevin Rosario, who runs the taxi company, and his daughter Nina, who is on break from her first year in Stanford, clash as they tackle making sacrifices for Nina because she's going to be like the one who makes it out of Washington Heights by actually going and finishing college. Despite her hardships at a majority white environment and feeling like she doesn't have a community like she had back home with her family and her ex-boyfriend, Benny. Other characters include Daniela, a salon owner, and her girlfriend, Carla and Cuca, a friend Cuca, not girlfriend, a local graffiti teen named Pete, a Piragua man, and Abuela Claudia, who has been the matriarch of the community. The story tests the characters if they will fall to the many challenges that come their way, like blackouts, gentrification, DACA, and even death, or if they can achieve their dreams and survive as a community.
I love that you performed this as a monologue. You did not read it to be like speedily telling the plot,
Because
but you were like,
as I was reading it, I was like,
about
this isn't so short to be a minute. And then I got halfway through and I was like, oh no, this is long. So I immediately rushed to the end.
Brilliant job. I really think that sums up the plot without. You did a A+
No
job
snark.
at not spoiling what happens at the end.
Yeah, I was trying to really like put in a mindset of like, I want to give a plot summary that like would hook someone that could want to watch it. Like I was when I was actually challenging myself to write it down of like, how do I? Yeah,
It's true. He took like 15 minutes to write it last night.
I think this is one of the ones we would say go watch it, right? I'm guessing that we're all going to say that. So
100%.
if you haven't seen it yet and you're interested and you don't want to go into it with full spoilers, to take a pause, go watch it first.
Yeah, because I think it.
But again, like the classic musical format, what are we really spoiling?
Yeah, nothing
People end
will
up
be
together.
spoiled, but there's a small twist at the end that you know, if you enjoy not knowing much, then go watch.
Yeah.
A small twist that the first time RJ and I watched it in the theaters, he like gasped when he realized he like did not see it coming. And I was like,
oh, is it a change?
We're thinking about different. We're talking about different.
I am referring to the story he's telling the kids on the beach. RJ thought they were actually on a beach.
Yeah.
Well,
so
okay,
when they
I guess. So hope everybody paused it that didn't want spoilers. But is that not what happens? In the
No,
stage musical?
No.
there is no frame story. There's no frame device.
Okay. Okay.
The audience is the children.
The audience
listening
is
to
the
Yeah.
children.
story.
Yes, it's Usnavi just telling us.
So it was one of those things where film directors are deeply uncomfortable with somebody directly addressing a camera. So they're like, they have to be talking to a person somehow that's in the movie. And they decided to do it that way. Gotcha.
To do it to kids.
And they just really wanted a free trip to Dominican Republic. They were like, we got to
Gotta get-
expense one trip to, which I don't blame them.
So my relationship to In the Heights is I was on a trip to New York in the summer of 2010. We saw 4 shows. We saw Promises, Promises with Sean Hayes and Kristen Chenoweth. We saw Phantom of the Opera in its 1,000-year run. We saw La Cage with the Kelsey Grammer La Cage that was on Broadway, the revival.
The Cage.
The Cage. La Cage aux Folles. And we saw this. This was our TKTS booth pick of the day. This was our get up early,
Subscribe and save. This was your
go to the booth, find out what cheap tickets were available. And I knew that the show had won the Tony for Best Musical, and it was like an option. And I was like, I pushed for it, and I was like, I think we should see In the Heights. So we went and saw it. It was great. I saw it with Corbin Blue as Usnavi, and he was really good. Genuinely really good. And he was also very kind because I stage doored, and he was very sweet and gracious.
Did he sign your basketball?
Yeah, I didn't bring a basketball. Unfortunately,
Couldn't fit that in your suitcase.
My head wasn't in the game.
Off season.
But I think the show is really good, but I like listened to it maybe a few times, but it wasn't a show that I was like, oh, I can like re-listen to it, because I think my brain doesn't work in this musical theater format really, except for like specific songs. Like I can't do a full album, but I can pick like pieces of this or Hamilton or whatever. But I think the show's good, and I like this movie. So that's where I stand. Molly, I'm saving RJ for last because he's going to be very dramatic about it. Molly, how do you feel about this film?
Mine might be
No. How do you feel about this film?
Sorry.
Just right into it. Molly, what is your take?
Yeah. Molly, what is your relationship previously before we watched this film?
Mine might be a tad dramatic because my biggest memory is RJ making me listen to the album and me not liking it very much and feeling bad.
I don't remember this, Molly. Where were we going?
I don't remember where, but I feel quite confident that we were on the L, or maybe like a bus, or I don't know if they ever like for our learning community, did they chart buses for us or anything?
So I think what we did a retreat.
Yes.
And on the drive back, you made me listen to last 5 years. So maybe on the drive there, I made you listen to In the Heights.
Maybe, because that's funny, because I don't remember making you listen to the last 5 years. So let's assume it's the same trip in which we didn't influence each other in any way. I just remember you being like so excited and me being like, this seems fine, and like not really being all that into it and feeling bad that I wanted to be friends with you, but I was not. Yeah, that retreat is where I got Henry, who is now a giant plant with many offspring. I'll have to take a picture of him to show you his. Yeah,
Henry's still alive.
Oh man, he's going strong. We've got Hank, Henrietta. We've got all of his children around. It's great. Anyway, back to In the Heights. So I remember that. And then also, I believe it was Haley Knudsen, who was a freshman when we were a senior in college. She did the song Breathe for her, like, what was that called? The freshman showcase, something like that?
Yes. Yeah.
And it was a great performance, and I really loved that song. So that's the one song from this musical that I super like, and I will like nerd out and go look up performances of various Broadway actresses at like 54 Below and like other reviews just doing that song because I think that song's great. Other than that, I didn't have any idea really of what the plot was, and I didn't really have much of a relationship with the music at all.
Yeah, I feel like this is my like your West Side Story, maybe your Mary Poppins, because so I in high school was when I like first started listening to like musical, like Broadway musical. That was like my introduction to it because I did theater for the first time in high school, and people were like recommending me different shows to listen to, and I was like performing like spoken word poetry for speech and debate as like a program, and my speech and debate coach was like, I think you need to like get kind of like the cadence and like how fast this needs to be. It's almost like rapping, so maybe you should listen to this musical called In the Heights, which I really love. And I was like, okay, cool. So she made me listen to it, and I like immediately like just fell into it and was like, this is amazing. I want to know more. I think I was also just like connecting to the like immigrant like story about it, because like I was still like I still had my immigrant status at the time, because I was just like maybe like 3-4 years in America. So I was like, oh wow, this is crazy. And then like I just went into a deep dive, like going through all of YouTube, watching all of the videos, watching the Tony performance. So that's kind of how I got into it.
What song did they do at the Tonys? 96,000?
They did 96,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember. Yeah.
And then when I got to college and went to Loyola, sophomore year, they did not a tour. I think it was like the Chicago, like not residency, but like the Chicago
production. Yeah.
Yes, their production. So that was my first and only time seeing it live, and I literally cried from curtain to curtain. Like,
oh my God.
The music started, the like do 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 do, and I was like, oh my God, I have been waiting years to see this happen in real time. So it's probably up there with all of, like, probably I would say it's probably my favorite musical of all time.
That's fair.
So
it's not a bad musical to pick as your favorite musical of all time.
Yeah.
I kind of wish I liked it more than I do. I wish that I shared your passion for it, RJ. And I see objectively things about it that are good, but I also think some of it, there were moments where I was listening and I was like, the same guy who wrote Hamilton did this? Really?
Yes, that's the thing. It's like, this is clearly his first musical.
Yeah.
Like that's just because he wrote it like even when he was back in college. Like he had been working on this.
Wow.
He had been working on this for, I think, for years, like doing different workshops and stuff.
Well, why don't I tell you all about it?
Oh, why don't you?
Famously, Lin-Manuel Miranda, who is just ubiquitous in culture at this point,
can't
get away.
Not look at him. Yeah, he's everywhere.
He did the music and lyrics for this show, and the book is by Chiara Alegria Hudes. Alegria. We're gonna take a guess.
She wrote Water by the Spoonful, which is a very good play that I think won the Pulitzer or something like that. I learned in my research, which is awesome.
She also wrote the screenplay for the movie too. So great. He originally like started writing it. He had the idea for it after he was a performance of Rent that he saw at 17 years old, and it gave him like the inspiration of like, what if I did this about like people in like my community where I live, because famously Lin-Manuel is like from New York, and is like, I think his parents are immigrants. I could be wrong.
What a crazy full circle though for Daphne Rubin Vega, who was in the original Rent and now is in the movie.
I don't know if that was the Rent. I don't know if he saw
that, but it was
the Broadway one. But yeah. But he toiled on it for a while. He wrote a draft in college. It was like an 80-minute 1-act thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then people like loved it and were like, you should like try to make this a thing. So he worked on it for like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And then it finally premiered in Connecticut at the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center in Waterford. And it did like a little stint there.
I was just going to say Lin-Manuel was born in New York, and it doesn't say if his parents were immigrants, but he said he spent some of his childhood and teens in Puerto Rico with his grandparents. So it sounds like he has at least one part of the family where his grandparents' generation lived in Puerto Rico. So
Yeah.
there you go.
So anyway, so the show after Waterford, it premiered on Broadway in 2007. It moved to Broadway in 2008. It won the Tony for Best Musical, and it won the Tony for Best Original Score. It won the Tony for Choreography and Orchestration, and then it was like nominated for literally everything else. It was nominated for Best Book. It was nominated for Best Performance by Leading Actor, Best Performance by Featured Actor, Best Performance by Featured Actress, Best Direction, Best Scenic Design, Best Costume Design, Best Lighting Design, Best Sound Design. Like anything it could be nominated for was nominated for. This is clearly the precursor to the Hamilton sweeping the Tonys in 2000 and what is that, 17? I think 2016. It gives that energy. Other than that, there wasn't like a lot of stuff I found like it just kind of like seems like it had like a clean shot to like he created it. People thought it was great. He added like a lot of the stuff he added was just more like salsa and hip hop or like freestyle rap influence into it from the original like 80-minute version that he did in college. And that's, I think, what people really like at this point really associate with like his style of musical theater. So it is cool that like he knew what his like thing was from such an early age.
Yeah, it's like validating. He must have felt very validated that like this is a not only like me telling like an accurate story of like what my community or like where I grew up in, but also like my voice, my style, and everyone was like, yeah, this is great. This is the future.
Yeah, I encountered some background that I think is probably adding to the Rent story, although it's like a slightly different origin story, but it's like his story about why he felt really motivated to write a musical that was like all Latinx characters or Latino characters. So he said in an interview in 2015 that in high school, he was directing West Side Story, it sounds like, at the same time that the musical Cape Man was coming out on Broadway. Have y'all ever heard of Cape Man?
What is?
No.
He's like a superhero?
It was this huge flop, so I'll tell you the specifics in a second. But basically, I guess that it was being marketed as like, it's going to be the great brown moment in musical theater. And then, but it was, no, I don't think it was that. I think that was Miranda's like, recount. I don't think that it was like literally marketed that way. Sorry.
The tagline of the show.
He was like excited for this thing of like, oh, like finally there's going to be this representation. But then it was again a story about gang members in the 50s, and he was like, so again, that's the only representation we get is like we're exclusively gangsters in the 50s. Okay, so Cape Man was a musical. It was a collaboration between Paul Simon of Simon and Garfunkel. This is so ridiculous. Simon and Garfunkel with Nobel laureate Derek Wolcott. And it's the story of Salvador Agran, who is a Puerto Rican American gang member who in 1959 killed 2 teenage boys. He was supposed to have a rumble with an Irish American gang called the Norsemen. And basically like there were these other teenagers in the park and they just like mistook them for the rival gang members. And so he killed 2 people that like were unrelated. But he is famous because he was 16 when he was sentenced for this, and he was the youngest person ever in New York State to be sent to death row. But then it was later changed to a life sentence, and then later he actually got released. So he was not actually executed for his crimes, but that's why he was famous. And he apparently wore a cape when the murders happened, is why it's called Cape Man. It's not clear to me if that was like a thing he did regularly or if he just like happened to be wearing a cape on the day that he murdered 2 people. But anyway, that was a wild Wikipedia rabbit hole. I will say I was running out of time. I read Wikipedia this time. But
welcome to the dark side.
Yeah.
Exclusively.
But I was like so enthralled. There was just like this one reference to it in an interview, and I was like, I need to know everything about the musical Cape Man now. This is amazing. So
this is Molly's pitch to like make Cape Man the movie.
Yeah.
Lynn, I think you should redo Cape Man is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Reclaim Cape Man. Hamiltonize Cape Man.
Yeah.
Hamiltonize Cape Man.
So critics at the time for the musical, they praised the songs, choreography, the set design. Their biggest criticism was levied at the book. They said it was like too simplistic, like a little too saccharine sweet, and pretty oversimplified. Which, when you read the Wikipedia summary of the musical and its plot, there are a lot of elements going on. There's a lot of plot in this show for a show that has as many songs as it does. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on. But I will say, I saw it and I was like 18, and I had no preconceived notion of what it was, and I understood it.
You didn't
it's not
like
like
lose.
You don't understand what's going on, but there have been many notable productions around the world. The first the first international production was in Manila.
Oh,
so I thought you'd like that. There have also been productions in Panama City, in Panama, Sao Paulo in Brazil, in the West End, Tokyo, Melbourne, Australia, in Vancouver, in Seoul, South Korea, in is it Lima, Peru? It's Lima, Peru, right?
Yeah, it's Lima.
It's Lima, Ohio, if you're a Gleek.
Oh. It's Lima in beans.
Loan in Germany, Nyborg in Denmark, Saltillo. I didn't even look that one up. I think it was, I'm not even going to guess. And then there has been officially one full-fledged Spanish-speaking production done in America that was like okayed by Lin-Manuel, and that was in DC, and it won like the DC's version of like the Tonys or like the Chicago Jeffs. Like, it won everything.
Oh, it was like a local production. It was like
a regional theater in DC. Yeah,
because I do know that he also brought, I think it was during the tour or something, but he did bring it to Puerto Rico too, in the Heights. Like they performed there too. So
you're thinking of Hamilton. You're thinking of Hamilton.
I'm thinking of Hamilton.
You're thinking of Hamilton because it was after Hurricane Maria when he went, and it was like for like fundraising, and he like redid the role.
I will add to notable productions. My friend Victor directed a black box production of In the Heights in New York after he graduated college. So there you go.
Notable production.
In the Heights in a black box. That's pretty notable.
Honey, you want to talk about feeling like a community?
Yeah. Yeah, fire. What is it?
Island?
No, no. Maximum occupancy in a black box is like 70, and
and
20.
Half that's your cast.
Half that's your cast. So
yeah. Anyway, there is if you want to, RJ, there are a few videos of Lin at the Manila.
Oh,
like opening night, and he comes out and like he says a little something during the curtain call, and it's very sweet, and it's crazy because he's so young. It's bonkers. He was back when he had his like short hair. Truly just a wild time. But you want to know what's more wild than the musical? The movie. So the movie is directed by John M. Chu, who is most famous probably for Crazy Rich Asians, which we stan. The screenplay, again, is by the book writer. I'm not going to try to say their name again. It is produced by Lin-Manuel, as well as Scott Sanders, Anthony Bergman, and Mara Jacobs. It stars Anthony Ramos as Usnavi, Corey Hawkins as Benny, Leslie Grace as Nina. I'm going to do this from memory. Melissa Barrera as Vanessa, Olga Meredith as I did it with a Catalan accent. Olga Meredith as Abuela, Daphne Rubin Vega as Daniela, Gregory Diaz the fourth as That Must Be Sunny. The fourth, yeah, the young one. And Jimmy Smits is Kevin.
Kevin Rosario.
His name is Kevin?
Kevin Rosario.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't like that name.
You can write down what actors play which characters ahead of time.
He does a screenshot. A peek behind the curtain. He does the screenshot of the sidebar
Wikipedia side panel on Wikipedia.
Oh, and I know that. I'm making a suggestion that you try a different tactic.
No, I think it's fun. Cinematography is by Alice Brooks, edited by Myron Kirstein. And the production companies, 5000 Broadway Productions, Barrio Girl Productions. I like that one. It was distributed by Warner Brothers. We'll get into how that happened. And it was officially released on June 10th, 2021. So we were still in season 1 of the pandemic, if you all remember. This was before Miss Delta and definitely before Miss Omicron. This is when we were feeling safe enough to go to a movie theater. How a folly.
Here in Chicago, we were like, oh, can't wait to plan market days and Pride.
The running time, it is 143 minutes. So just know that. Its budget was $55 million. And unfortunately, its box office is 43.9. And I'm going to make you even more sad. Variety estimates that in order to break even, this movie had to make $200 million.
Wow.
So they are
in the hole.
In the heights, in the hole. Yeah.
Oh no.
Another one of these, like, it feels like West Side Story again, where it's like beloved by critics. Audience members have given a really high satisfaction rating. Like, multiple people say they would recommend it to people. Commercially a flop, which is just a real bummer. And there was this thing I was reading where people were saying, obviously, like the pandemic. Some people said, like, it's also because it was on HBO Max for free at the same time. Well, if you had a subscription, then it was free. So that could have skewed the numbers. I was reading something that was saying because it's so long, there are only so many showings a theater can do in a day of this movie because it is such a long film. It's not like a tight 90. It's obviously much longer. And then there were 25% of movie theaters in the country were still closed when this came out. And many theaters were still doing social distancing, so they only had limited like seating capacities. So there's definitely a lot of things working against it for sure.
I also, like, as I said at the beginning of this, where like I've had a long stretch here now of not seeing people. There is something great in that circumstance about seeing a musical that has like so many people in it and they're like all having such a good time in a lot of the numbers. But there's also something kind of depressing about it. And I sort of wonder if we like just didn't have the appetite for like, let's see a bunch of people celebrating.
And I think, I mean, watching the movie, you can clearly tell the way it was packaged, the way the shots are shot. This was meant to be like a big summer blockbuster.
Yeah.
Everyone go out and see it with your friends and family. And,
I would also say that at the time that this movie came out, which was like early June, they had just released, like, officially the vaccine was like available to everybody over the age of 18.
Yeah.
Like, it was like a full, it's happening, it's here, it's real. So on that level, I think there was like this appetite for like, this is the movie that's going to bring people back to the movie theaters. And I think that it was still, I just think the estimates of what is happening in the pandemic are still really wonky in regards to like specific genres of films. I'm going to bring up, I haven't done this for a while, but I do want to point out the top 5 movies in that opening weekend, because I think it's a really good, especially during the pandemic when June of 2021 literally feels like it was 8.5 years ago.
Yeah.
I would just like to point out the other movies that were in the theater at the time. So number 5 that weekend was Cruella, Disney's Cruella. Number 4 was Peter Rabbit 2, The Runaway, a classic we all know and love.
With our fave, James Corden.
Number 3 was The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. Number 2 was In the Heights. And number 1 was A Quiet Place Part 2.
Oh, okay.
So the horror fans
are
ready to go back to the movie
yes.
theater. Children are ready to go back to the movie theater.
I mean, like, I guess we also need to be like, racism is a possibility, right? I mean, the two musicals that we've been talking about are heavily Latino, and there could just be enough people who feel like that.
Not mine.
I mean, could be open hostility, but also like that's not for me. If I'm not Latino, I assume I won't enjoy that for some reason or something.
Yeah.
It's possible. Don't like to think it, but it's true.
I always do wonder, you know how they were originally supposed to release like Hamilton in the theaters like before the pandemic? That was like the idea, and then they were like, actually we'll do it on Disney Plus. Well, that was supposed to happen. So I always think about like if the pandemic hadn't happened, I want to know what that would have been, because
what the numbers would have been.
Yeah, it would have been why like so many people anyway, this has nothing to do with Hamilton, but it's just a weird thing. I think
it does. We have to talk about Hamilton when we talk about this musical. I refuse to not talk about Hamilton this episode.
And this is the last time we'll be saying the word Hamilton during this entire podcast. In 2008, so the musical wins the Tonys in 2008. Okay, fine. So in 2008, Universal Pictures is like, we're making In the Heights. We're going to release it in 2011. Kenny Ortega, the director of High School Musical, is going to direct this film. And we are searching for a bankable star, aka J-Lo or Shakira.
In my mind, I am thinking J-Lo as Usnavi, right?
The star. Shakira as Benny. Yeah.
Oh no.
What is
J-Lo as Abuela?
I want to reiterate, both of those options, unless they are going to play Daniela, is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both of them are way too old to be playing either Vanessa or Nina.
It's too bad that J-Lo is the age she is, because she could have been an amazing Vanessa, I think, in the 90s, maybe? I don't know exactly how old she is. But like, if she were age appropriate, it would be great. But yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
She was 50 when Hustlers came out. So.
Yes. Okay. So anyway, just wild. So that doesn't end up happening. I don't know if you knew that movie didn't happen. So in 2016, it's announced that Lin-Manuel and Harvey Weinstein are going to co-produce, and it's going to be made by the Weinstein Company.
Ooh.
I don't know if you heard, but something happened with Harvey Weinstein, so that also did not happen. So the rights were then auctioned to WB, and like WB did this whole like, in order to get like to win over Lin-Manuel, basically they like built a set of like piragua carts and like a barrio like on their back lot, and like had him come out, and we're so excited to do this. They had like performers dance to the music. God. They were like selling the whole thing. So they set the budget at $55 million. So I do think that's very interesting that like Warner Brothers was like fighting and gunning for this movie. It is currently nominated for Best Soundtrack at the Grammys, for Best Soundtrack accompanying a visual media or something like that. I don't know. The Grammy has weird categories. And then Anthony Ramos, who is Usnavi again, he was nominated for Best Actor in a Musical Comedy at the Golden Globes, but he did not win. But
Andrew Garfield won.
Andrew Garfield did win for another Lin-Manuel Miranda joint, Tick Tick Boom.
So the LMMCU is just
and then also
with movies.
Encanto happened and won the Golden Globe for Best Animated Feature.
And Lin-Manuel directed Tick Tick Boom. Is that his involvement? Because he obviously did.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Cool. Yeah, I feel like if I were Lin-Manuel Miranda, I would never write another Broadway musical, right? Because, like, you can't top Hamilton. He's probably getting better money in Hollywood. And I would be like,
absolutely.
That was my contribution to Broadway. I will be writing Disney music for the rest of my life. That's what I would do.
You know what? He will make bank. The kids love it. The kids love
Everybody's talking about Bruno.
Everybody is talking about
I literally listened to it 3 times on the drive home.
Everybody's talking about Bruno. Everybody's talking about Bruno.
Boo.
I hope that our audience remembers the Jamie episode and also is familiar with Encanto. That was a layered joke, y'all.
Layers.
I think you'll be surprised to know that our audience ship is that Venn diagram.
Is that layer?
Yeah.
They are those ogres. Ogres have layers. The only fun fact that I wanted to like call out was that In the Heights and West Side Story were both filmed in New York at the exact same time.
Wow.
To the point that they were filmed like blocks apart from each other. And at one point, one of the catering trucks for West Side is in this film, supposedly.
Oh,
I don't know if that's
fun.
actually true, but that's what John M. Chu says. And then Lin-Manuel Miranda, who had, which we talked about at the time when we did the episode, but he did the Spanish translations for the revival of West Side Story.
Mhm.
He like snuck over onto the West Side set and watched Maria get filmed.
I feel like there must have been some great parties that people threw where they like all hung out during these filmings. That sounds like a fun crowd to be around.
I also just imagine the idea of like living in these blocks at the time and being like, I would just be filming out my window. I would be like, hello, here I am with my
Neighbors.
Professional Nikon camera.
I feel like you would have like tried to learn the choreography and see if you could just sneak into the back of one of the dance scenes.
Yeah.
It'd be very easy to do, I feel like, In the Heights. A little harder.
A little harder
in West Side. You gotta
Mostly
get some
just because of
period
costuming. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yes,
gotta get
it's
some
true.
vintage dresses on. So that's all my fascinating fun facts about this movie. I can't wait to talk about it. There's a lot to discuss. So let's dive right in. RJ, where do you want to start? Because I think I'm going to let you lead our discussion today.
Wow. Okay. Well, I think. Oh, there's so many.
Your options are, okay, you're going to struggle with this. So your options are we can go beat by beat through the film, which I don't recommend because there's a lot going on in this movie. We could go relationship by relationship, or we can go through themes of the movie, which I think is probably your best bet.
Yeah, let's do themes. But I do want to ask, Molly, did you read the original plot of the Broadway
I did not. No.
Okay.
So my only context was like, it's about Washington Heights. I obviously saw the like colorism scandals or controversy when the movie first came out, but I did not have any idea of what the plot would be.
Okay. Because I will say, like, as we go into themes, but I just want to say that like there are a lot of departures from the original source material, the book, book of the show. Not necessarily like some omissions, like in like storylines, like characters being dropped off and reorganizing how things happen to, I think, like fit what they want the arc of the movie to be, and then also like deeper looks into certain characters. So like some background, like just for example, like Vanessa in the show, you don't know that she's like an aspiring fashion person and that she.
Okay, I don't think that's true because I read the Wikipedia page.
Does
and
it say?
It says she wants to be a fashion designer.
Well, she's not. She's not designing overnight. Like, this is my newest.
I was inspired by the rags.
Yes, she wasn't like actively sewing or whatever.
Sure.
So there's just like a lot of like, I think, deeper dives into some of the characters that aren't in the book of the play but are in the screenplay. So we'll get through them as we pepper along the combo.
I would say that this movie is one of those movie musicals that is, it's not wildly different, like it's still In the Heights.
Yeah.
But they have changed enough elements that it is like a departure from the musical in enough, like, I don't think it's like bad what they've done, but it's just like, this is not a one-to-one. So like seeing this is not the same as like being like, well, then I don't need to go see like my local production of, first of all, go support local theater. Second of all, it's just a little different. Like, Usnavi and Vanessa are not the main couple in
Oh.
in the
In the
musical.
show, yeah.
It's Benny and Nina,
It's Benny
who
and
is
Nina.
like the couple you follow the whole show.
Is Usnavi still the protagonist, would you say? It's just that his relationship's not as important, or would you say he's not the protagonist?
I would say the show I think is such an ensemble piece that I would say he probably is the protagonist, but only because he's like narrating the world of the neighborhood to the audience. Like he's explaining who everybody is, basically.
Yeah.
So you get to connect to him before everybody else.
Is his decision of whether or not he's going to go to the DR at the end, is that the like last change that a character goes through in the musical?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
But at the end, Vanessa does leave, or like she does move away. And it's like not, and it's not clear if they like.
There's no child.
There's no child.
It's very different circumstances. Should we just tell everyone what the ending is now? It feels like we're going around
So
it.
Harry Potter dies because he's a Horcrux. That is what happens at the end of In the Heights, famously.
Snape kills Dumbledore!
Snape kills Dumbledore.
So the story of Usnavi is that he wants to go to the DR he's buying his father's old bar. So his father owned a bar in the DR before they moved to New York. He's buying it. It's like now kind of in ruins, and he's been saving for it, and he's trying to get Abuela and Sonny to come with him. And then, but by the end of at the very end, Vanessa and Pete, the graffiti guy, convince him to stay. And so like that's what happens. And the twist we were talking about before is that throughout the movie we see him talking to these kids on the beach and like telling them the story of Washington Heights. So you think that he is in the DR. And I wrote in my notes when I was watching it, I was like, this is weird that they're like spoiling what his choice is going to be because he's like on the beach. But then you find out at the end that it's actually that Pete has done a mural inside of the bodega of the beach, and that he's telling it in the bodega in New York. It's just that they through movie magic made it look like they were on an actual beach.
On a beach. Yeah.
But they were just in the bodega in New York, and he is with Vanessa and they have a child together, and that's like the final shot is their happy little family.
Happy little fam. Yeah, and also like some notable, I mean, we can start here probably. Like some notable differences in the plot too is that the Paciencia y Fe happens in Act 1. And Abuela, the conclusion of the song is that she wins the lottery ticket. So it's not necessarily about like, should I keep going, try to live, or should I like, it's my time, I should die. Spoiler alert, I guess, too, Abuela dies, and that kind of erupts the whole fabric of the community. It becomes more about like, I have literally worked all my life, my parents have worked all my life, and this is the first time that like I have been given like a gift like this. And so she's like unsure like what to do with it. And so that is the money that inspires Usnavi to move to the DR, to go back to the DR, take Sonny
so he
with
doesn't
him.
have that goal to begin with?
Yeah, he finds out at the end of Act 1 during the
Well, he wants to go back to the DR.
He already knows that he
has expressed that opinion, but it's never like been a reality.
It was never
have the money yet. Okay.
Yes. It was the lottery ticket that Abuela was like, we are splitting this evenly, you, me, and Sonny, so you can go back to DR and yeah.
I am so scared. I'm so sorry. We have to talk about, if you promise me we will talk about Paciencia y Fe later,
yes,
then I will move on.
Yeah.
But if we're not going to talk about it, I have to talk about it right now.
We'll talk about it later. I think it deserves its own conversation.
I think it deserves its own podcast. I'm not even kidding.
I have a series of complaints about how the lottery ticket is handled in the musical. So I would be fine talking about Paciencia y Fe now. Is there anything to talk about with, so Usnavi is moving to the DR, Vanessa wants to be a fashion designer and move downtown. Mm-hmm. That's their plot. And the lottery ticket is what sort of moves it forward. So like, is there anything we need to talk about with those two before we get into Abuela and the lottery ticket?
In the movie, it's revealed later on. Like it's like a gift after Abuela dies, halfway through the movie, that it's like a gift for Usnavi. And
I also want to say that I called it. as I was watching it. I was like, does Abuela have the lottery ticket? Yes, she did.
In the show, because it happens earlier, it becomes...
Is it crazy to be an adult and hear 96,000 and be like, it's really not that much money? Like, I remember, okay, it is a lot of, I'm not saying it's not a lot of money.
Yes.
But it's not like a $1.2 million lottery.
Usnavi does say, like, you can't quit your job with that. And also, I love that he was like, also, like, half of that is going to taxes. And I was like, Usnavi does financial literacy. Absolutely. I love it. But yeah, so that was, but yeah, the discussion of the amount of money and the choices they make around it, I feel like is kind of my biggest piece of complaint about this movie. Oh, but can I say one thing too, if we're still kind of setting up Usnavi?
Yeah.
The joke of his name is that on the on their way into the US, his dad saw a boat that said US Navy and was like, I'm going to name my son that. And that's how he got his name. And I definitely, this whole time, because I knew enough about the musical to know that was the main character's name, was like, I'm really uncultured that I've never heard of a person named Usnavi before. I was like, yeah, that name seems really weird to me. But like, obviously that's like a bad reflection on me that I'm not familiar with what I'm sure is a very common Latino name.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
No, it's a joke. It's not a real name.
But yeah, the lottery, like, it happens so much faster in the show that like that is revealed already, and like the rest of the town knows, like at least Sunny, Usnavi, and Abuela knows about it, and then it's in Carnaval del Barrio in the show version. He announces that Abuela won the lottery, and so he's leaving. So that's kind of how it's announced. Which is kind of how the movie is too. That it's, but it's just like,
I would say
the circumstances around him leaving is just different.
I would say the biggest, if I could summarize the difference between the musical and the movie, is that the musical emphasizes all of its like conflict is relationship based, whereas like the movie makes it like actual tangible conflict of like the dreamer thing, and the like a lot of it has to do with like then getting the money at the end like allows all this everything to like fall into place.
Yeah.
More so than like the movie or the show where it's just like, we need to talk about our feelings.
I would describe the movie as about a series of people in the neighborhood who all have dreams that they're trying to accomplish, and it's them pursuing those dreams, and the relationships, especially the romantic relationships, feel very secondary to those dreams. It's sort of like they will only they only exist to serve us as long as they're not in conflict with our dreams. Although it's kind of like, it felt like the way the movie ended was like Nina and Benny are kind of going to put their relationship kind of to the side because Nina has to go to school right now, but they're not going to break up anymore. They were broken up when they started. They get back together, but they're like, but we're going to be long distance. And then that they decided to have Usnavi and Vanessa and be the ones that decide to put their relationship above their dreams, which I then kind of didn't like. I was like, I just feel like you've told me how much Usnavi's dreamed of this, like since he was a child. Like this was his dad's dream to go back and repurchase the bar and all this stuff. And Vanessa had worked so hard to like get her apartment downtown. And I was sort of like, I just don't know that you've sold it to me enough that like this relationship is better than what those dreams were, when I've seen you pursue those dreams so passionately throughout the rest of the musical. So I ended up not really liking the fact that they got together, and I suspected it was just that they were like, well, we can't have both couples not end up together. But I didn't really like that choice. So that's interesting that they don't necessarily end up together, or it's not clear in the stage show.
Yeah, I do think that it's like definitely the conflict between the two of, or their kind of main goal is that.
I disagree with Molly completely, by the way.
I don't
let RJ finish and then we'll hear your take.
I think the Usnavi and Vanessa are the same in the way that like their dreams is to get away from this. Like they, Usnavi has always felt like this was just something to kind of hold him over, but now he's like about to turn 30 and he still runs his bodega. And then Vanessa is the same way. She never got to like actually pursue her fashion design career because she's been just trying to like make ends meet working at the salon. And I always took it as that like they're both realizing that their dreams can like change, or that their dreams can not change, but they can still achieve their dreams in where they are. It has like they're able to like realize what is real and like can be like, this is a new dream now, or like they're able to like see that their dreams can still happen.
Well, and I like the idea of like what's essential about their dream doesn't actually require them to leave in order to get it. That Usnavi is like fulfilling his father's dream in a way, and Vanessa is able to do her fashion design. I like that idea. Adam, tell me why you wholeheartedly disagree with me.
No, I mean that was pretty much all it was.
Okay.
Was just I like what I really respond to with this movie is the fact that the idea of calling them little dreams as opposed to like the classic like capital D dreams that are like of Disney films, which is like, I want to do this big thing where it's like, I just want to do this small thing and make this part of like the line that they keep replaying is the
best days of my life.
No, the small
little sueñito.
No. We have to
lights up on Washington Heights, but the break of day I wake up and I got this little
no idea.
No idea.
96,000? Is that what it is? Look at the fireworks. Look at the fireworks.
The iconic line when they say 96,000.
Power, whatever the lyric or whatever the melody.
We are powerless. We are powerless.
Oh. What? Those has to be what you were referring to.
That you have to assert your dignity in small ways.
Okay.
Like, I really liked that like emphasis of like just small things are like over time, those are the big things that matter. Those like small bits that pile on each other, which I think also I liked that they were like small dreams because those are the ones that sometimes feel because they're your daily thing. I don't know. I don't know exactly what I'm saying, but I think there's very famously, I like to trail off at the end of my thoughts.
Someone once said,
and it was me. But I just like that that like they're all like tangible dreams that they have, and that they like can skew them enough that they're still getting their like they're still achieving their dream while also like acquiring other like gifts along
that they're
the way,
like maybe like blocking off because they're so focused on like, I have to get out,
like
gotta get out of this town.
Yeah. she's got to sell the land to the Cheetah Mall company.
Yeah.
In the second act when Cheetah Mall came in, I was so surprised by that twist. That was what I really didn't want.
The Cheetah Mall cinematic universe.
I really didn't want our audience to get spoiled on that, but I think we have to talk about the Cheetah Mall entrance.
When Daniela was an angel this entire time.
Oh my god.
Oh no.
No, it's great. The musical's about dreams and I love it. I hated at the end that they stopped him when he like had cleaned out his apartment and like I assume found a new renter for the bodega space and whatever. He was like on his way to the airport and they were like, now we'll convince you not to go. And I was like, this is so too late. He's put a deposit down. He like this is not how anything. Someone else has signed a lease for his apartment. Where is he gonna live? I know it's like drama, but I stress out so much because I get so stressed about those sorts of things in my life. Like I'm probably gonna move in July and I've already started packing certain things in boxes because like I find that whole process so stressful. And the idea that I'm like on my way to move to another country and someone's like, one more thing. I hate it.
One more thing. I have a bottle of champagne.
Oh my god. Okay, can I just have to talk about the lottery ticket now. When he finds this lottery ticket that's gonna give him $96,000. And then he calls like a convenience store to say, when do you close? So we know he's going to go cash in that ticket. And then his crush, Vanessa, shows up at the door with a bottle of champagne to thank him for, this is also where I feel Daniela got done dirty, but I don't want to get too off track. She comes to thank him. And I say, Bitch, you open that door, you say, Vanessa, great to see you. Let's take a walk together while I go pick up my $96,000. I know you like her. I know it's been a misconnection and you want to show her that she's a priority here, but like it's $96,000. There is no one I like enough in this world that I would want them to not take me with them to the convenience store to go pick up that cash right now. It's an insane decision. An insane decision.
Let's walk and talk.
I will say I agree with you. If I had a piece of paper that was like I'm getting, even if it was like $1,600, like even that amount, I would be like, I need to go collect this money. I don't know if there's an expiration on it. Like I need to go get the money. So $96,000. I'm putting off this conversation.
And then the next day he goes to Sonny, his cousin who he's worked with this whole time, and he wanted to bring him to the DR. He learned he can't bring Sonny to the DR because Sonny is a dreamer, and so he doesn't have papers, so he can't leave the country and come back. And he goes to the lawyer, and he's like, here's a lottery ticket to pay for his legal case, and then put whatever's left in a fund for him. And the lawyer's like, it's highly unorthodox, but okay. And I was like, Uznavi says, I have to just give you the ticket because my plane leaves tomorrow and I don't, or maybe even today or something. And
so
I don't have time.
So he missed the store. He never got to the store. And I said,
Uznavi, I know that rescheduling a flight can be expensive, but I'm pretty sure it's less than $96,000. So I think maybe you could rebook your flight just to take a couple extra days to sort that out, is my feeling on the matter. I feel like you could probably afford a new ticket if you've just won $96,000. You know what I mean?
I'm on board. I fully agree. 100%.
I think that's why the idea that there is a specific payoff by making the lottery kind of like the Deus Ex Machina, like that'll kind of help clear up a lot of different things, the solutions, or at least provide the path for people. But yeah, it ends up being like there's a lot of holes in like, okay, people know what the realities are when you have that much money. So like there are solutions that you can do. I don't know. Yeah, like that was kind of my issue of like, there better be a good payoff by saving the reveal of the lottery ticket to the end. Because in the show, kind of going back to the conversation of the show is based more on the relationships, the like 11 o'clock like reveal is Abuela dying. So they really save that till the end. That like that is the reason.
She doesn't die until after the bar, the dance.
Yeah, the dance.
Oh, after the bar. Okay. So
the Carnival.
Yeah.
So okay, so she doesn't die in the blackout. The blackout happens at the same point, but she doesn't die there.
She does technically die during the blackout because the blackout is multiple days. She dies on like day 3 of the blackout.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So that's why, like, yeah, the shifting of like what gets revealed where is interesting, but I think we'll get more into the notable differences. But like, it's a clear decision that like the movie is telling a different story.
Yeah. Why do you think they did change it?
I think the inclusion of the dreamer.
So
like
Sonny in the show is not a dreamer.
Right.
Oh,
this is fully added to the movie.
Yeah.
And I think in order to have the emotional beats that it needs to have, and also it has to, I do actually like that they intertwined the Nina storyline into the dreamer, in that she like, because of this whole situation, that's her impetus to like go back to college and like finish, or like try again, I should say. And in order to like make all that happen, I think they had to like rework the order of how everything else happens in the show.
Yeah.
Because like giving Sonny the entire, like all of the money going to Sonny is like much more meaningful than if they had all three split.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I kind of wanted the lawyer to be like, I'll do it pro bono. I did kind of want that to happen, but he was like,
he seemed
okay, yeah, I'll take that.
He seemed like he was struggling though, so he wasn't like some
Sure,
big
sure.
timey lawyer. He was like
Yeah.
in the community and stuff. So could we now talk about Paciencia y Fe? Because I feel like I'm a little unclear in the musical as to like why.
Mhm.
It sounds like RJ, you were saying that she's like conflicted about what to do about the lottery ticket or something. Could you explain that more to me?
Yeah. So the song, it kind of happens around the same time. It's like before.
It's her like first song.
It's her first song, so it's after 96,000, before
Before the blackout.
before the blackout, before the club, before the dinner, before the dinner with like celebrating Nina or Nina's return. So it was always kind of like built up as like it's revealed that Abuela won the lottery ticket and kind of like figuring out like what to do with not responsibility, but what to
It's
do
more
with
just
that.
like the reason the song is called Paciencia y Fe is because she has worked and
Spent her
toiled
life.
and like had patience and faith her entire life and is finally being like rewarded for it. Is like
Yeah.
the feeling that the song gives you in the musical.
Mhm.
Whereas in this stunning interpretation of this song, I am not shy to say that I think this is like one of the best filmed songs in movie musical history. Like,
Wow.
I just think the way she performs it, the decisions they make of like going through her life in like dance and like by using the old style trains that they like rented from the New York Transit Museum and like all of these things, and then ending it in that pedestrian tunnel in the 119th like subway station with the like lights that flash red, white, and blue because that's the flag for Puerto Rico, Cuba, and America. Like every decision that this song does, when she's holding onto the pole and the pole becomes like a beam of light, the whole song gives me chills, and I have no words to express how much it, like, when I first saw it in the theater, like I was like uncontrollably sobbing because I was like, this is incredible.
Yeah, and obviously the movie, it's positioned that it is more Abuela having patience and faith her entire life, but like the question at the end is, should I basically like keep going, or have I done enough, or like have I done have I done enough to kind of like be able to leave?
Yeah.
I think is what it was trying to go for.
I also think like the idea of like her having this like thought, it felt more to me like her last question of like, should I stay, should I go, was more like, have I been enough to this community? Have I done all that I can to like lead them through like their next part of their lives? And it's just, I just think her performance is incredible. I think she sounds amazing. I think the costuming and the choreography is so artistic and like beautiful. And I like literally have chills all over my body thinking about it. I'm putting the song in. I'm putting the song in right now.
And as I feed these birds, my hands begin to shake. And as I say these words, my heart's about to break. And I, Mama, what do you do when your dreams come true? I spend my life inheriting dreams from you. I made it through, I survived, I did it. Now, do I leave or stay? All right, Mama. Okay. Paciencia y fe.
So yeah, that's Paciencia y Fe.
Cool.
Molly's like, I thought it was fine.
Thought it was cool.
I mean, I do think, as you were describing it, it made me think about the like debates people have about whether you should release movies on HBO when they first come out, or if like you really do need to go to a theater to see it. And I feel like part of it may be that like none of them numbers hit me quite as hard because I was just like watching it on my not all that particularly big living room TV. You know what I mean? Like, I wonder, I did really like the choreography and everything, but I just didn't feel like pulled into it in the way you're describing. And I wonder if I was like in an actual theater, if it would have hit me a lot harder.
Yeah.
I also, the other thing I just want to say about the way they chose to like do this song and their interpretation of this song is like, they went with every song in this movie has a concept. And I think it's like really cool that like, it's a really great way of being like, they're singing these songs in the world, but also we're not in the world at the moment. There's like this magical realism aspect of this film that I think is like really cool. Yeah. And the one for this is like, obviously she's about to die. So they just went with the theme of like she's telling her life story. So what if she is doing the thing that they say like happens at the end of your life where you just have your whole life flash before your eyes. And the whole sequence is just like, it just like follows the trajectory of her life like while she's on the subway. And I think the subway is a beautiful metaphor of like one place to another and then like finally coming from underground up to above, like going from below up high. I have to stop talking about it. I sound like an insane person, so I'm going to stop talking.
I will say I do agree that like this was one of the best like visual representations of a song for like a movie musical that I had seen in a long time. And I do agree. Yeah. I think seeing it in the theater where you are engrossed and
it's all black
in that moment, I think it definitely gives that same feeling like at a theater. I feel like at seeing it live or being in the moment.
I do feel like, that it really made the most of being on film and like all the things you can do that you can't do in a theater when it's in film, the way the dancers like come in and out and the subway, like the realism of the actual subway cars and everything. I will say the one thing that I didn't love about this as like an adaptation is that every once in a while they'll do like actual like animation kind of thing. So the two times where I noticed it was in Vanessa's song, where then we see the like fabric coming up off the the buildings, which I thought it looked a little cheesy. I didn't love it there. And then in 96,000 they have some cool like people are kind of talking about their dreams for what they would do with this amount of money, and then they'll like kind of draw it almost like on their hands. And I just was like, I just think you need a little bit more of this for it to be an established part of the world. It felt a little jarring when it was like, I don't know, there's a difference between something like Paciencia y Fe where like it's clearly magical realism, but it's still like things that could literally happen in the world. You could be on a subway train, there could be dancers around you. Like it could happen on a stage, I guess maybe is the difference, versus like animation is like it couldn't happen even on a state, like it's totally divorced from the real world. And I was
what
like,
is crazy
not enough of it. Yeah.
You are not talking about, I think the craze. I do agree with the 96,000 one. That's the one thing in this movie. That's the one.
It felt very like teacher visual aid.
But it's only in the beginning of that song. And then once they get into the Busby Berkeley, like shot from overhead swimming pool sequence, I'm all in. 100% in. I really like the fabric coming off the walls because I like it. But the one that I think is like interesting that you don't point out, which I think is the most glaring, like this is not real, is the like them dancing on the side of the building.
See it's funny because that to me is like also a little bit of like that's a little more in the realm of theater where like someone could be in a harness or something. I don't know, but like the fabric is like, so I think it's also that the fabric are like, to me, very lame colors and patterns in that sequence. Like it felt like they needed a fashion expert. They should have hired our friend Martin to like come in and like consult on the fashion. No, because I felt like those fabrics were like very chintzy look. I didn't like the
Drab.
fabric.
They were
be
all,
fair,
they were all just like
and-
solids.
All of the fabric she's been using has been from dumpsters and rags, so I think that
sure. But like it's her dream version,
But
so
it's her
I
dream
thought
it
it
should
should
be
be
her
more
dream, yeah.
like a little more subtle and like sophisticated or whatever. And then
Yeah.
unlike her clothes she makes at the end, I think are frankly kind of ugly. Like I just think that they could have used. There are surely some design students in New York that they could have hired as consultants to be like make something
Yes.
that actually looks like an interesting, because like I noticed graffiti rag seems like it's such a like tropey, like obvious. It feels like a very obvious. It feels like something that I would think of, which is like means it's not something an actual fashion designer would think. You know what I mean? Because I have like no
Yeah.
training or experience in that, and it was like find something more interesting. That seems like the number one thing. If someone was like find inspiration from the city, you would be like cool graffiti, right?
Graffiti,
You know? Yeah.
They should have had an episode of Project Runway, and it would have been like, designers, for your challenge, you are to create a garment for the hit movie musical
Und Garment.
In the Heights, and the winner will be featured in the final scene of the movie. That's what they should have done. They should have had the collab.
Yeah, they don't have that show anymore though. Now it's just a direct to Amazon product marketing show. So
where if you pause, it'll show a link to buy that dress.
Yeah.
On Amazon.
We live in a dystopia, people.
the thing that Adam did say is that like every song is concept. Like there is a vision for each song, and I think it works really great in some, like Paciencia Fe, and then
hear that, Stephen Chbosky, director of Dear Evan Hansen.
Oh, wait, if we're throwing a shade at Dear Evan Hansen, I want to say Lin-Manuel Miranda, who is known for casting himself in roles that he can't reasonably play, still didn't make himself Usnavi, Ben Platt. Even the king of giving himself roles that he probably shouldn't be the one playing acquiesced in this case and said, I should not be Usnavi in the movie version. Ben?
I will say, like, yeah, in certain songs it works, in certain songs it's not as effective. Like I love Breathe. I do think though that like the seeing her inner child is cool, but because they kind of repeat it as a running theme to her next song, When You're Home with Benny, which is just not really a memorable song, I feel like, in the context of all the other songs that's already happening. And like that's supposed to be like you're seeing all, you know, like the how beloved you are by the community or whatever. It just kind of felt like a fine concept as opposed to like the more like, I don't know, more interesting and creative ones in the others.
We have now discussed or touched on 3 songs, so we have to pick one of them to talk about. 96,000, Breathe, or It Won't Be Long Now, which is Vanessa's song.
Let's compare Breathe and It Won't Be Long Now, and then do 96,000.
Okay. For a retrospective for those who are listening, here's Breathe.
When I was a child, I stayed wide awake, climbed to the highest place on every fire escape, restless to climb. I got every scholarship, saved every dollar, the first to go to college, had a wall down the way. I'm coming back home with my eyes on the horizon, just me and GWB. Asking Janina, what'll you be?
And here is It Won't Be Long Now.
The neighborhood salon doesn't pay me what I wanna be making, but I don't mind. As I sweep the curb, I can hear those turbo engines blazing a trail through the sky. I look up and think about the years gone by. One day, I'm walking a JFK and I'm gonna fly.
And I'm gonna fly.
I think they're both good songs. And I think they are two of the songs that feel the most early Lin-Manuel. Where like they still have a little bit of the like classic, not classic musical theater, but like 90s musical theater, just like the like more contemporary sound of musical theater in terms of, as opposed to like Hamilton's like female songs, which are like I can't believe I said we won't talk about Hamilton and we're talking. Yeah, well, that, but also like the ones that they do sing, like Eliza's song,
Helpless,
and her
or
other
Burn.
song in the Act One, or
Burn, Helpless and Burn.
Helpless and Burn, or obviously like Angelica's song, which is like a sleigh and everybody stands. I just think that Breathe and It Won't Be Long Now are kind of more basic, but that's not bad. I'm not saying they're bad songs. I just think that it's like clear that he was at a different point in his career.
Yeah, I think he was just trying to kind of fulfill the wishing song for these characters, especially for the two female characters that do kind of fulfill like an ingenue role. I mean, Nina more so than Vanessa, I feel like.
In the musical, but I think in the movie it's Vanessa.
I think in the movie they do a little bit of like,
or maybe they're more even.
They're a little bit more even in the movie. But I think what he gets though in Breathe, I would say I feel like what he gets more in Breathe is that the second half of the song is so good, of just like her basically saying like, these are my stakes. Like, this is why it's so hard for me to be back home, because I want to be here, but also knowing that I shouldn't be here because they all want me to succeed. And like, she's like that internal conflict for her of like, I want to be here, I want to be back home, but knowing that like all the sacrifice that I made, that I don't know, maybe it was just the first gen immigrant kind of like in me of like, it's just such a, I think he does a really good job of kind of describing that first gen experience of like, my family has worked so hard for me to get the things that I have, but I don't know personally if I do actually want those things. And I think in regards to It Won't Be Long Now, I think she has a little bit more of that, that her wishing and wanting song is more obviously like self-driven, that she feels that like she is meant to be farther away. Like, she's meant to be out in the real world, in the city. She's meant to be downtown. She has so much talent and like potential that she sees in her.
Well, not to Molly.
Not to Molly.
Sorry, Vanessa.
Sorry, Vanessa. So it is kind of fun to like, they're not necessarily foils, but they are playing with the same themes, but want kind of like opposite things. And
it's very Thoroughly Modern Millie. I'm on the way up, I'm on the way down. Thank God we met in the middle.
I feel like
that cool. We don't talk about that musical.
We can't.
I feel like, I mean, I don't know Vanessa's song as well because I just like I said, I know Breathe. I've like listened to it a lot, and in that song, I really like the peaks and valleys I feel like that exist in it musically. But also, I think I like that song because the fear of academic failure is something that I feel very connected to, even though I've not had the experience of actually failing out of college. I feel like the idea of that happening to me is something that has lived as a worry in my brain for a long time. So I feel like I can connect with the character in that way. I feel like, I don't know, it's those songs are not as much though where I felt the like, here were the wares that I felt were not as strong. So one was like, I feel like the opening rap in this musical is like a little bit plotting. And at first I was like, oh, that's very different from Hamilton. But then I thought about it and I was like, actually, no, the opening to Hamilton is also very like, kind of a slow,
How
a
does
little
the
bit
bastard
plotting
orphan son of a
rap. And I think that the difference is that in Hamilton, it feels like the information is so much more dense and the wordplay is so much more dense and there's more characters and stuff like that, that like the slow beat feels earned. Whereas in this, it's almost like, all right, it's not that complicated as Navi. Like get into it. Like let's get some energy in here.
The cast of it's like a funny thing happened on the way to the forum of like, here's this person and then here's this person.
Yeah. So it feels like it's like Lynn was like worried that we were all going to be like so unused to rap on a Broadway stage that he was like, let me take you through the music. Okay, this is what it was like in my brain. That's kind of what the opening is. And I feel like he learned more about like how much information. I mean, maybe people did panic. I feel like he learned more about how much information you can like get across at that pace. I also feel like not that many songs were like advancing the plot necessarily. Like we were just talking about how these were I want songs. So absolutely there are songs that fit the like general arc and like expectations, but it just felt like there were more musical numbers in this that were more sort of like here is what's happening instead of like let's move it forward. And then also the lines, look at the fireworks. I literally wrote in my notes, like, you can stop saying look at the fireworks now. Like, how many times? It's the most literal thing you could be saying, which is look at this thing that is happening. And they say it like 50 times.
A million times. Yeah.
And then also the we have no power is like, all right, Lynn, could we be a little more poetic with that? Is there a metaphor we could use instead of literally just saying
we are powerless?
I mean, I guess we are powerless is what it is. But like, I guess it's like a metaphor in that they like, it's a literal blackout and they also don't have power societally. But I was like, could we be like a little bit more clever with this?
That's when it feels like it is like, I'm getting used to this, like writing anthems, like, you know, that you can kind of tell now that like, oh, you've worked through this, so that's good.
I think when we were watching it last night, I said to RJ, especially like in Breathe, the thing about New York that's so interesting, and like I just think a lot of bigger cities in general, like New York, Chicago, LA to some extent, obviously, is that there are like areas where it does feel, if you stay within that certain place and you have like a sense of community in that small area, it can feel like small towns in middle America where everybody knows each other. And that I think is something that like is like a classic staple of American musical theater because of like what Rodgers and Hammerstein decreed that American musical theater is basically. But like, I think it's like a cool way of like twisting it, but also serving the same idea. Like I really like that everyone knows her and everywhere she goes, she's like supported and whatever. But also having that interior like nervousness that I think probably a lot of like first gen, not even immigrants, but like first gen kids who go to college and like just have that like that community who like wants you to get there and to succeed because you don't want to fail yourself, but you also don't want to fail everyone who's like helped you get to the place that you're at. I think Breathe is just, I think it's a really great song. And I also really like It Won't Be Long. I think both of them are like just strong.
I remember when I was first listening to the show, I really loved It Won't Be Long Now. Listening to both songs, like kind of reliving both songs.
That's Karen Olivo.
That I think it was more just like, I think Karen Olivo just really sells it. And I don't think Melissa Barrera, I don't think she does a bad job, but there is like I feel like I'm missing like.
That was the cuntiest way.
No.
She was bad.
She wasn't bad because it was really good, but like I mean, I would say the same for Leslie too. Like there is a sense of like, obviously, like it's more internal in a movie. You don't have to belt out. There are belty moments in the songs that they do, but like it's that like they both happen. It's the same. They end the same way of the like belting, and then the last line is like to myself, and it's gonna.
Well, that's what I mean about like Lynn feeling like his songs have variety in Hamilton, and obviously Hamilton he drew inspiration from like different.
Styles like each
and
song
artists
is a different
and
style.
blah blah blah. But it is interesting that Breathe and It Won't Be Long Now could essentially be like flip-flopped and you wouldn't necessarily like notice a difference other than like lyrically.
Yeah.
I will just say to support RJ that I felt like the actress who played Vanessa, like her acting was great and her dancing was amazing, but I just didn't think she had the high notes needed for her songs. It felt like she really struggled at the top of her range, which was like where they needed her to belt it. So I think she was a little shaky on it.
It's hard when the consciousness is like, you're comparing it to Karen Olivo, who is literally like singing her ass off.
I'm not comparing it to Karen Olivo, and I still thought she was a little shaky. Now, let me say, she did 1,000 times better than I would have done. I'm not saying that because I think I'm better. It's just, I'm just telling factually for a movie, I think she needed like a little more coaching on it or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the one of the best parts about this movie that I was kind of talking about a little bit is just like the sense of community that this show in general has, that this movie specifically has. And there are two songs I think that really like emphasize that. And they're obviously Carnaval del Barrio, which is like just such a number where you just, it's like, for a long time in musical theater, there was like you weren't allowed to like just have like a number of just like fun merriment. And like this is like what I would call like the shapoopy of the show, where it's like a song for song's sake, where you can have people dance and enjoy themselves. And it's like we were talking about, like it's like there are a lot of like classic musicals that just happen to take place at like a fair or at like an activity like that. And I like that they did Carnaval del Barrio.
Hey, Carnaval del Barrio, Carnaval del Barrio, Carnaval del Barrio, Carnaval del Barrio.
Me, Danny, I have a question. I don't know what you're
And it feels very similar in that way. But also like No Me Diga is a great, like, it wins for me on it's my favorite number in the show, first of all, but it wins for me because it's such a great it's such a great use of like place and location, and like you get who these characters are so quickly. I think this movie does an incredible job at like doing interesting choreography and doing interesting like styling and camera work in this sequence, and also like setting up, still like working through plot and like defining relationships during the course of the song, because you get like the bit about Nina and Benny, and you get the bit about Vanessa and Usnavi, in case you like weren't clear on who likes who in the show, and blah blah blah. And I think it sets it up all well. And you get Valentina. RuPaul's own
fan favorite, work fan favorite.
I'd like to keep
two
it on,
Mimis
please.
in a room.
I'd like to keep it on, please. You know I love you, Farrah.
Oh no, he played Angel, not Mimi. Girl.
Oh, girl, Adam.
Girl.
The wigography alone. When the wigs started dancing and bopping along, I think Adam and I both squealed in the theater.
That's one of the things that it's like this is the like magical realism that like I like so much, is like, how do you take a thing that's just like normal, and they could not have the wigs and it would still be a great number, but like it's just the little cherry on top that makes you go like, ooh, this movie knows what it's doing and like how to make it exciting.
There's two
comical.
Yes, there's two dancers in the back holding their long ponytail, like two pigtails, and like doing like.
Oh, I was talking about the wigs. Like
no,
wigs.
I know, but just in general, the wigography, the wigs moving and shaking. But this is the first time I saw them actually like also
like
doing
braiding their hair in like choreo.
Yeah,
or the nails choreography.
Yes, the like nail tapping,
clacking, clickety clack of the nails.
The little Sutton Foster nails tapping on the counter.
Nina, seriously, we knew you'd be the one to make it out.
I'll bet you impressed them all out west. You were always the best, no doubt.
We want front row seats to your graduation. We'll call your name
And we'll scream and shout.
Guys! I dropped out.
No me diga.
There's obviously many different like songs and numbers that show like how vibrant the community is, and obviously I think the one too that is awesome is 96,000. I think because in the visuals it does utilize an awesome set of like the community pool because it's in the middle of the summer and it's hot, and like already in that setting of like the whole neighborhood is here, and we're all kind of like talking about this one thing, but the added touch of the Busby Berkeley synchronized swimming, dancing was just like, this is a summer movie. This is the America.
Well, and this is a movie musical. You can't do this on a stage.
Yeah.
And that's what's like makes it so visually interesting and exciting and more cinematic.
96,000.
Ay, alabanza.
96,000.
Oh, me diga.
96,000.
I never win shit.
96,000.
For real though, imagine how it would feel going real slow down the highway of life with no regrets and no breaking your neck for respect or a paycheck. For real though, I take a break from the wheel and we'll throw the biggest block party, everybody here. A weekend where we can breathe, take it easy.
Yo, mom, it's me.
So I had this weird thought in the movie where I was like, I feel like because every song is showing a different setting, there's a different concept, it does feel like the neighborhood that they're specifically talking about feels really big, which obviously like it's not just one block, but I was kind of missing that feeling of like, if I'm watching this on stage, I am watching the block. I am constantly seeing the bodega.
You're on the corner.
I am on this corner. It's the same people that go through this corner every time. Abuela is the center of this whole community. There was a feeling of like, I'm missing that like core that I almost was like, should more of the things happen in that corner, like outside the bodega? I don't know if you two felt that way about the community or the neighborhood.
I don't think I thought about it since I haven't seen the stage show, so I wasn't like comparing it to that. But it is interesting, Adam, what you said about like it being almost like a small town within a city, and then there's like so many people in the group numbers, which is like amazing to see on film. But it does sort of undercut the idea of like this is a small enough community in which you would actually know everybody in it. Like there are so many people in that pool in 96,000. You couldn't know all of their names,
There's
right?
500 extras in that song.
Yeah. And like Dunbar's number, I think, or something that like humans can only know like 150 other people. That's like about our limit of how many people we can like know and actually conceptualize as full people. So readers, you can fact check me on what the name is of the number. Anyway, I think that's interesting. Yeah, I guess it did feel a little bit more like here are people who happen to be in a community rather than this is a movie about a community.
Because I think I was missing that specificity, and
I think this also led to some of the could have possibly contributed to some of the critiques that this movie got about like colorism. There's a massive plot thing that's missing, which we do have to talk about. But I think also the fact that they broadened this neighborhood to being from a block to being an entire neighborhood, while visually like more interesting. Obviously you get to go to more locations and you get to really feel like you can sense a full neighborhood in that way. But I think that also then you start to question like, why is everyone you're interacting with only like one shade, if that makes sense, which I think is the problem that a lot of people, not a lot of people, but I think there were definitely some valid critiques levied at this film.
Shall we talk about colorism? Shall we do it?
Yeah, because I think the Benny and Nina story will kind of relate to that too. So I just want to give in context first. One of the main differences from the show and in the musical, that Kevin, the dad, his big conflict with Nina is that he doesn't like that she's dating a black man. Like that is a major point for that.
He's not Latino.
That he's not Latino. And the movie, the show actually has both sets of parents. So you have Camila, the mom, and then Kevin, and Camila kind of plays a peacekeeper type character because she is kind of like the eyes of the audience, that both Nina and Kevin are very stubborn and set in their ways, and they always clash. So like this is Kevin's way, and then Nina's way of like kind of like counteracting against him is that she doesn't want to pursue college, or she doesn't want to stay in Stanford. She wants to like leave, basically. And so that becomes like the main conflict for that family. And I think the movie just focuses so much on that portion of it, the college thing, that he's giving up more and more of his businesses and he's selling parts of it so that he can afford the tuition. But it has completely removed kind of like the racial element of him not liking that Nina and Benny are together, which I think if the movie was as tight as the show was, where it's like, it's this one corner, it's this one block, then I feel like that is at play, because these are the people that is our family, and this, like, Benny is an outsider, you know, versus I feel like now in the movie, because it is wider and bigger, I don't know, like there's no reason why there wouldn't have been like more Afro-Latino main characters. Like you see them in the background and then like that fill the scenes, but it's not, there's no reason why there's no like main Afro-Latino like main character in the story.
I don't even think that Nina's dad comments on her relationship with Benny at all in the movie.
At all in the movie.
So there's
No.
there's not even like an opportunity for there to be an implied racial reason that he would dislike the relationship, because he has no opinion about it in any way.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting, because I was actually, when I watched it, I mean, not that like, well, there's one character, so that's fine, so everyone should stop complaining. But like when I watched it, I was like, well, I don't know if Benny's Latino or not. Like I had no way of knowing that. And so when I watched it, I was sort of surprised that everyone was like, because I think I remember reading like there were no Afro-Latino characters. And I was like, so we all just like assume Benny's not Latino? Like why is everyone
Like,
just
he was
like
just
declaring
black,
that? But now that I understand that that's made really explicitly clear in the stage show, that would sort of explain why people felt that way.
Yeah, I think it's I wonder what the conversation was. Maybe it just felt like they were like, we're spending our energy on, if we're going like with political things, our A plot is the Dreamers, and our B plot politically about like things that are happening in Latino communities is gentrification. And maybe they were like, we just don't have we're already a 147-minute film and we don't have the time for it. But I do think it is like a valid part of a lot of like Latino community. Not valid, but I mean it's like a thing that happens in Latino communities for sure. It happens in cultures all over the world. Like any kind of like darker pigmentation is typically like seen as like a lower class. And I think that it's a shame that they didn't want to explore that. And I think especially in the time we've had post 2020, I think it's like it's more glaring. I think if this movie had come out in 2019, I think that conversation probably would have still been had, but I think it wouldn't have got the traction that it did, because I think more people are attuned to, especially in like cinematic discourse, I think people are like focusing on like what you're choosing to include, and you're specifically choosing to not include, especially when you're leaving something out of a thing that has that plot in it.
Yeah. And I do feel that because they didn't kind of quote unquote decide that that's something that they would want to tackle, there would have been no real reason why the actress that was playing Vanessa would have been like Afro-Latino or like darker shade, or like Sunny, or any of the main characters could have been that to show like
also, and if the prejudice is like coming from her dad's opinion of her dating someone, you could still also have other characters who are Afro-Latino, but like he doesn't feel a need to comment on that because they're not dating his daughter, right?
They're
So
not
like,
dating his daughter,
I feel like you can include it either way. And I'm sort of shocked. I mean, I only read a couple articles to like refresh myself about the colorism debate, but I'm like shocked that this didn't come up. And it kind of makes me feel like they felt like they couldn't include it for like the normies. You know what I mean? Of like more people are going to be watching us. And so
Yeah.
we have to make the political commentary one, like kind of issues that we all already associate with Latinos of like immigration and right. So like that feels a little like, oh, that feels a little gross now that just like, oh, well, it's a Latino movie. So like we have to include a dreamer plot. But also like, is there a fear of like opening up your community to that scrutiny when it's such a wide audience that could see it? Like, do you not want the self-critical stuff in there?
This is the rep sweats, which is something that NPR's podcast Code Switch talks about a lot. They call it the rep sweats, where you have a piece of media about a community that's typically marginalized or not given very much representation in media. So the entire community sees that and so thinks that it has to apply to every person's it tries to apply to every person's experience in that community when it's not possible. And we don't expect that from white media. We don't expect like, I'm not going to go see Nomadland and be like, well, I need to see myself on screen. Like I just can, but there's something different about because there are fewer movies made about like Black communities or gay communities or like Hispanic communities. Like they have to also approach these like the one I always think about is how the show Looking, which was on HBO, which was like the gay version of like Girls, basically, how like on Twitter, like gay guys hated the show because they were like, well, this isn't what I go through as like a gay person, and it's like, well, it's not a documentary. It's in fact a show about like this specific group of people. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's I understand the anxiety, and I was, as you were talking, I was checking, and I think I found that it started filming in 2019.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I think that a decision to do the Dreamers DACA thing was more of like a reaction of like Trump rescinding it, or like not, or just like the Dream Act not being signed, or like just
that
not.
It's still like it's still just sitting there, not doing anything, because unfortunately Congress was at a stalemate on it.
Yeah, there was definitely a thread. I don't remember what the like exact legal status was. But I was the reason 2019 stood out to me was because I was gonna say I feel like post George Floyd's murder, to make the choice to not include
race,
a plot about anti-Black racism, it's kind of insane in that context. So it makes sense to me that it was a choice made before that, because I feel like that does seem like a very present thing. And like specifically, this is a thing that specifically happened in Latin America, but I am not pointing this out as if it's a thing in Latin America, not in America. Lots of anti-Black racism in the United States, not at all implying that. But there was the casta system in Latin America where people were like legally put in categories based off of their racial identity and like the amount that you were mixed with indigenous or other Black diaspora. And so it feels like the coverage that I read about it was very much about the fact that like it's both this like, this seems like our one opportunity to get represented. So there's all this pressure. You have to represent the whole community and let everybody be seen. But then also the fact that like, if you have all these lighter skinned people from a culture where traditionally lighter skinned people have been sort of rewarded for being lighter skinned, then you're like kind of perpetuating an injustice from also like where we are from originally. I also thought it was interesting, though, that one of the articles I read said that Leslie Grace is Afro-Latina, but she just is, like, quite fair-skinned. And so I just, like, I think that still, when it's colorism, obviously I see the point that, like, casting a very light-skinned Afro-Latina kind of doesn't meet the mark. But, like, it also feels a little bit like invalidating of her experience that doesn't come up more at the same time.
And there was like, Adam did have a conversation, like when we were rewatching it, he was like, she is like, yes, she is fairer skinned, but I think she is technically Afro-Latina, like just like the way she looks and like her features and stuff that I think if the movie had just like made that clear, but like they didn't even show pictures of the mom. So like, what if the mom was like?
Because I was saying maybe their thought was like, we cast this girl who we know is Afro-Latina. We're not showing the mom. So the audience is going to assume that the mom was Afro-Latina, probably. We can't have Kevin not like a black guy because he married a black Hispanic woman.
Yeah.
So, but this is all, I just made this up in my head. Because but there's no concrete evidence for this. I was like, if I'm going to give them the biggest benefit of the doubt possible, that could be a conversation that happened. I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure it was just at the time that they made this film, when they were developing this film, they were like, we're just going to focus on gentrification and the Dreamers, which I want to say, I think the Dreamers plot is handled really well. I think it like is really moving and touching. I think like Sonny as a character is given so much more like value in the show because he's honestly just like comic relief. And that's fine. I'm a character actor, so I am fine with people being comic relief. But like, I think the moment he gets at the rally, when he has the realization that like he might not be able to go to college because of it, like I think all of this tied together like really beautifully and like really emphasizes how frustrating it is that we are still at a place, even with members of Congress who on both sides of the aisle who support Dreamers becoming American citizens, that they still cannot decide on the rest of the immigration package around it. So they just refuse to do anything. Like it's horrible that we are still at this place in this country. And like the DREAM Act, I think, was like proposed in like 2011. Like we are still at this place like 10, 11 years later. So it's truly bonkers.
Yeah.
But that's also to say they could have still done the colorism aspect of the show.
It seems like the choice to cut the plot line about Kevin, Nina's dad, being upset about his daughter dating a black man, that's a conscious decision. And I think you might be right that it was to switch it with the Dreamers and give time to that new plot line. But it feels like the not casting more Afro-Latinas is like probably just like blind spot, right? It's like a combination of structural racism and like the creative team not sitting down and saying, should we be thinking about that?
We should,
know? That's my guess.
Or like, hey, it's looking a little beige to me. Like,
Well, even that was brought up in the terms of casting, like West Side Story, how like Rachel Zegler, who's very fair skinned, was cast as Maria, the like pretty ingenue, whereas like
and
Anita, who's the fiery like one, is like the Afro-Latina character.
Right. It would have
now there they did cast an Afro-Latina very, very obviously, and made a point of like calling that out.
Right. But no, I think it would have been more dynamic casting to flip those two. But Ariana DeBose is so perfect that I want her to be that character.
I want her to do the Cher, play every character in West Side Story.
I will say, just on the subject of the Rosarios, Jimmy Smits is so good in this movie. I literally could not look at him whenever he would get emotional.
Molly, do you know Jimmy Smits?
No.
Okay. I mostly know, I mean, he was on like, I think NYPD Blue for a long time in the 90s, but I know him mostly because in the last 2 seasons of The West Wing, he plays what becomes President Santos, the first Latino president of the United States of America.
Cool.
And he's very good on The West Wing. And I have a lot of like positive warmth toward him as a person. And when there are moments in this movie when he like tears up, I literally couldn't look at the screen because I cannot watch Jimmy Smits cry, is something I learned yesterday.
And he just looked so much like my father at times that I was like, oh, cannot do this. This is too close.
I did. Yeah, I got emotional in the very first scene when she's in the diner and telling her dad that she's not going to go back to college. Or no, she frames it at first. She says, oh, the
You missed
deadline
the-
passed, that we don't have
Yeah.
money to pay for it. And he like gets so mad about it, and I also got weirdly emotional in that scene for sure.
But that's another change from the musical too, because in the musical, the reason she is not going to go back to school is because, do you remember this?
She like fails, right?
She works 2 jobs to help pay for college, and because of that, she falls behind on her schoolwork and loses her scholarship.
Not to trigger you, Molly. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, she loses her scholarship.
Not to trigger your fear of academic failure.
So in this one, they like brought up, now this is where they pointed out like it's not a bunch, but like this was like the racism aspect.
Yes, this was how they dealt with racism of like, when I was at Stanford, they searched me. They thought I was
well, she has 2 stories. She has the search story, and she has she was at a party, and she was like handed
they thought I was
a plate
or
whatever.
I was kitchen staff, yeah.
But that oh my gosh, it's so weird now that I have that context that the original musical dealt with anti-Black racism, that they were like, let's just make it racism against Latinos and like not make it so like,
yeah,
it's like,
right?
make it less complex is what it feels like.
But the thing is, like, that's not really what people were talking about. They were more focused on the like visual representation of colorism,
Yeah,
right?
which
like in the
now,
movie.
Yeah, now I'm like annoyed at that conversation for not being more nuanced. Like, that's what I'm saying.
I know,
like,
right? And that's why
yeah.
I feel like someone made a note about that, and then everyone just like jumped on that bandwagon.
That's what
It
it
does kind
seemed
of
like.
feel that-
Yeah, it sounded like I was doing research on it, and there was like a producer from The Root who like was talking to the cast and the director and brought it up, and it was the way that the article I was reading was sort of telling the story. It was like everyone loved it, and then this one woman who is Afro-Latina was like, it's kind of weird that there's not any main characters that are Afro-Latina, and then like that became the story, and that was the focus of the whole thing, and it was like just who was cast. And now I'm like, there's so much happening with race that could have been discussed as part of that we all just like missed. That's really frustrating.
Yeah, that was the frustrating, and that's what I just took of it as.
This is my question: is are we as a culture getting to a Lin-Manuel is Anne Hathaway moment? Because I think there is this like Lin-Manuel Miranda is famously very earnest.
Yes.
He is a person on Twitter who's like always like lifting you up, which is like great, but like not what I don't follow him on Twitter for that reason, because I don't need that energy.
I don't need positivity in my life.
I don't need positivity in my life.
The friendship between us three, there is that's not a requirement that we need. It's not a dynamic we need.
2022 vibes is cut out all positive people from your life. Toxic vibes only.
Toxic only.
But I also think we're at like a moment in culture where we're in very hot take culture. I am not saying that any of the problems levied against this film are not true either. Like,
to insult Molly, who famously did a hot take about Dame Judi Dench. We don't want to.
That hot take makes sense.
My hot take was very well reasoned out. Okay, I really thought about that.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
But I think it was just like a combination of a few things that like led to this like overwhelming backlash that in retrospect seems like it was just like a sizzle in a frying pan. Like it had no bear. I think we just discussed how like there are significant things that like we agree that they should have been kept in or like dealt with in some fashion, but also like to pretend like the movie isn't do it. If the movie was just like, oh, it's just a love story between like 4 people and that's all it is, and it's not going to do anything else, then it would be weird because they didn't actively go out and do any other things. But I think it's frustrating that like yes, it is frustrating that they like got rid of the colorism aspect, but it's also frustrating that I think they're not like, it's not being commended that at least they like tried to they tried to tackle other issues that like musicals aren't doing. There are no musicals about like dreamers in America. Or like, does that make sense? Like, I don't want to sound like I'm being overly defensive.
I think it's totally valid to point out how BS it is that like anytime a movie comes out that like puts forward a marginalized community, it gets so critiqued for the like non-perfect representation. What we don't want, we want those criticisms to exist, but we don't want that to be used as a reason to like stop making movies like this, because
to not support it. Yeah,
right. Because it's like, Macbeth isn't getting criticized for like could have had a more diverse cast or whatever. That was like the last movie I watched before this. Sorry, but like famous white things are not like getting enough criticism for that. But like we have a musical written by Latin people that is starring a huge cast of Latinos, and like that's great, and that should be that good is a bigger good than where it could have been more perfect. And we should take the lesson, and we should cast more diversely from the Latino community next time we're making a movie like this, because there need to be more movies like this. But like what would be a shame would be to say it's too hard because there's going to be too many criticisms because there's so little representation that everybody needs everything from this one movie, and that's just not something that you can do necessarily. I mean, yes, they could have cast an Afro-Latino. It would have been that hard to do that one thing, but like, it's the perfect the enemy of the good thing is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I think also it shows how Twitter mobs are like not useful, in that yes, this needed to be elevated and talked about, but like there was a more nuanced conversation to be had about it that got lost because the thing that Twitter is good at is like hyper focusing on one very simple and very visual problem. And that's like not that useful actually necessarily.
Yeah.
Like Maddie Morphosis being straight.
I know that the gag is that Maddie is a straight man, but like, shouldn't we really be upset that her name is not Mandy Morphosis? It's all I want to call her. Like, why did you not go with Mandy Morphosis, girl?
Wow, Madeline, any Madeline around the world who goes by Maddie caught dead.
We're going to get a letter from the Society of Madelines.
It's not about the validity of Madeline as a name. It's because Mandy Moore is a celebrity, and Mandamorphosis also kind of sounds like metamorph. It just would work on multiple levels. And it's like, do you not engage in pop culture, Maddie? Like you're too good to know who Mandy Moore is? You've never seen This Is Us? What's wrong with you, straight boy?
Well.
Two last things that I want to say, because I feel like we're wrapping. One is, how in the heck are you going to pay for all the remaining semesters at Stanford? Or was it Stanford? Is that right?
Yes, Stanford.
Home of the Stanford trees.
Yeah, she literally is like, well, Dad, you sold half of your taxi business to pay for my first semester, and I don't want to make you do something like that again to pay for the second semester. And then he's like, guess what? I sold the other half of my taxi business. And I was like, we're out of halves, y'all. So what are we going to do for the next 3 years? I hate that. I also hate any time that a college decision is treated as a binary choice. It's like, go back to Stanford or don't go to college is how it's like framed. And I was like, there are so many options that aren't.
There are so many options.
Famously, there are a few colleges in New York City. She could probably stay at home and go to college. And then the other thing that I wanted to say before we end.
That's not true.
I don't think there are any colleges.
I don't think there are any colleges
in the East Coast. No, I think it's all California.
The last thing I have to say is that how Daniela was done dirty in this movie is that Uznavi goes to her and says, Vanessa needs a co-signer to get her apartment downtown, and I'm going to the Dominican Republic, so could you sign on this lease? And then Vanessa has the gall, the audacity to come to Uznavi's department. Come to Uznavi's apartment and say, that's the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me, in reference to Uznavi asking someone else to do something for her. Who is taking the financial risk here, Vanessa? Who's truly, actually, do you know who deserves the champagne? Daniela, for co-signing your lease. Do you know what's a nicer thing? Actually co-signing the lease rather than asking someone else to do it. Insane that is,
but then she doesn't
framed as a good thing Uznavi did.
But then she doesn't move in?
No, she does. She does move.
Oh, yeah, because she comes up.
So here's the thing, though. Because the movie saves the lottery surprise later...
This is not true what you're about to say.
Oh, it's not? Okay.
It's not true.
Then never mind. Because I thought in the show, he uses his lottery...
No, in the show, Daniela says to her, Usnavi had me sign your lease co-sign your lease.
Oh, that's right. So yeah,
So that's directly from the show.
So then, yeah,
The
Vanessa,
point is, yeah,
priorities.
Usnavi is taking credit for what a woman actually did, and it just grinds my gears.
A woman who owns her own business.
Yeah.
A queer woman who owns her own business.
No, we have to talk about the queer woman.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Because I just want to touch on
End on the beauty salon, girl.
Let's end on this note. It's funny that the hot take that probably could have been hot was that the first scene that we see Daniela and Carla is that they are in bed just waking up, and Carla gives Daniela a kiss
on the cheek.
Because they had just woken up together in the bed that they share in the apartment that they live in together because they are a couple.
And then the rest of the movie does not treat them like a couple, but it doesn't treat them like a couple.
Yeah.
So, and it's almost like that one shot is the only thing. And then I guess in interviews, Stephanie Beatrice and Daphne Rubin Vega said that they like went in with they were like, we are going to pretend that we're going to act like we're a couple, which is fine. It's great. And it's a cool choice, but it didn't do anything and it didn't go anywhere. And I feel like I would have rather it just, I don't know. On one hand, I don't need every movie to be like, look at this gay couple. Look at them go. Look at them gay. Like, I don't need
Look
that.
at them.
Look at those
But
gays.
also,
look at those gays.
If you're gonna make the choice to be like, we are changing, I guess in the show, technically you don't know if like there's no like overt discussion of like their sexuality in the musical, but like if you're going, ostensibly they're straight. So if you're gonna make the choice to be like they are a queer couple, I feel like then you should do at least a little bit of like something more than just like they woke up next to each other in a montage of a bunch of people waking up next to each other, people we don't know.
So we don't know if they are
I honestly
like,
fully
because we
missed
don't see
this.
them
I
again for
didn't
another
even
like
notice it.
30 minutes.
Yeah. Just have them dance together in Carnival. That would have been a pretty easy way to do it.
Have them eat each other out in Carnival del Barrio.
Or like have them kiss.
Sorry, Rita.
Oh no. Sorry, Nan.
Sorry, Nan. Sorry,
I
Mom.
like that you're sorry to my mom before you worry about your mother's reaction.
Well, I think my mom's more used to it, unfortunately, for her.
Yeah, that was like a thing of like, okay, it was kind of, there was just no clear, what am I saying? There was no clear direction on if that was a choice or not. And also like the addition of Kuka, because in the show, it's just Daniela and Carla.
Oh, okay.
In the movie, they added Kuka. I wonder if it was just like because they really wanted Dasha to be in the movie, because she really brought in a great energy that I was like, she's very
great in
happy.
everything I've ever seen her do.
Yeah. We have to end in Anthony Ramos, though. We have to end in Anthony Ramos. He is so good in this movie. He is so charming. He is so attractive. He is so...
I want him... Rita, turn this off. I want him...
But not Nan. Not my mother. Not
Mom, you can listen. It's fine. You've heard this before. I want this man to top me in a way that is unholy. And that's all I'm going to say for the sake of everyone listening. He's so attractive, so charming. I refuse to believe for a second that Vanessa looks at him and is like, yeah,
whatever,
okay.
I guess.
Like, it took her the entire movie to be like, I guess I like you. If that man showed me any affection, I would be like, I will be arriving at your place promptly at 7:05 p.m. We will make our way up the stairs to your bedroom.
So I believe that the email is showgaysmoviemusical@gmail.com. So Anthony, if you'd like to get in contact with any of the three of us, we're all open to anything you want to propose.
We're all good to
I
go.
am very open. I just want to be clear on that. No, I think he's.
And
really
if I'm
good.
not open, you can open it up.
Anyway, I guess Anthony played Usnavi in the Kennedy Center production of In the Heights in like 2017 or something like that. And Lin-Manuel like tweeted how he thought like Anthony did such a good job, whatever. And then like the next year he was cast. But I think he's really great as Usnavi. I think it's like
so lived in. He's a real person.
He is a real person.
Which I think in the show there is a sense of like
he's no Corbin Bleu, obviously. Afro-Latino? I don't know if that's true, actually. I think
Corbin Bleu is black. But we'll look it up.
Molly, look it up.
But yeah, Usnavi is such a kind of host MC type character in the show that he's such a real person here. And also I just love when we get to see Lin-Manuel Miranda roles played by, full singers and dancers. It's so nice.
Corbin Bleu is Italian and Jamaican.
Okay.
Oh, Jamaican. Okay. I'm going to play a little bit of a song called Piragua.
Oh, qué calor, qué calor, qué calor, qué calor. Oh, oh. Oh, Piragua, Piragua. No black of ice, Piragua, Piragua, Piragua. So sweet and nice, Piragua. Tengo de mango, tengo de parcha, de piña y de fresa. Tengo de china, de limón, de peso y de peseta. Hey, Piragua, Piragua. No black of ice, Piragua.
By the voice, we all know it's Lin-Manuel Miranda singing. I was of one thought about this role. I wanted to bring this up because I said something to RJ last night, and I want to rescind what I said after finding out more information in my research today.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm curious. Okay.
So last night when we were watching the movie, I was like, I truly hate that he's in it. I actually would have been more okay if he had played like Kevin, like Nina's dad. Not I don't think he would have been good. I think Jimmy Smits is incredible in this.
Yeah.
But I think like it's because it's such a cameo that it feels so wink wink because he's not hidden in like, it's not like he's like a passerby on the street. And it's like annoying because it's him and then it's Chris Jackson as Mr. Softy. And it's like, I'm just annoyed when I see it
Chris
because
Jackson
I'm like,
why? George Washington in Hamilton, just for
Hamilton. He also played the original Benny in the Heights. So I was just like, enough, Ganug.
Toxic vibes only. I don't want this positivity. Right. Wink, wink.
But then I found out that they were going to cut Piragua. They were going to cut the Piragua man entirely from this film. And the producers were like, the only way we will keep it in is if you play the Piragua man. And he wrote the Piragua man because he was like, I think one of the best parts about like small communities like this, or just like lived in communities like this, is those people who like, it's like that guy, it's like that taco guy that we were just watching on that Eater thing.
In Chicago, yes, yeah.
Where it's these people who have like tiny little jobs or just like small businesses, like the smallest of businesses, but you get to still experience, like in the show, it's so fun to watch him because he comes in and out a lot more often. And you like almost get a sense of like, there's an entire musical that this man is the star of that we're not watching, but this man is living an entire life separately. And I do think in that regard, I like that this is still included in this film because it does drop in that sense of community.
Yeah.
To some degree. Still was annoyed it was Lin-Manuel.
I think it could still have been more integrated. I feel like he could have been in more things. Like the fact that he was just in the opening number, Piragua song, Carnaval, and then the post-credit scene.
Yeah.
I wish that I... Oh.
Yeah, it was all the way at the end. He sings the reprise where
Piragua.
he wins against
Mr. Softy.
Mr. Softy.
Yeah.
I don't care about his inclusion in the movie nor at this podcast.
Because he's not Evan Hansen.
So let's move on.
Great.
Molly was just happy that he wasn't Usnavi. So
yes.
Do you know the famous story about how he was like, he wrote Hamilton. He was like, I didn't know if I was going to play Hamilton or Burr.
No, I don't.
And it was like, Lynn, in no world can you play Aaron Burr. You can barely play Alexander Hamilton. Okay, moving on. Does anybody have anything else?
No.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure.
Oh, I mean, I'm just curious why, Molly, you said that there's no finale, because there is a finale. So I'm just curious what you meant by there is no finale.
I'm just trying to get us to move on because I said I was rapping like 30 minutes ago.
I know. Oh, I'll cut that out.
Great, thank you. Is there a finale? Is there a finale song?
Did you
not mean the song called Finale? Is that the song you're referring to?
Did it not feel like them like singing the like home and like that this is their home now? Like
it felt like I don't think it was a reprise, but it felt like a reprise rather than a song.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like a capper.
Because it starts with the reprise of the record. So there's like so it's like
I guess here's what I mean by a finale. And if someone is a movie musical director listening to this, please give this to me.
If Kenny Ortega is listening, please tell us.
Please direct a movie in which there is a final number that is a new song. It is the full length of a song. There are more people in the frame than there have been in any other song so far.
Yeah.
And we end on the final note of that song. That is what I mean by a finale. And I feel that this has music and a final image more so than it has a finale.
That's true.
That's true.
She wants all of Yonkers zooming out of the wedding chapel, waving.
Oklahoma, full music number. I want it to be a distinct, and then frankly, I want it to be my favorite song in the movie. Maybe that's a high bar to hit, but like that is usually, but that like used to be what finales were. That used to be what finales were. Where like that was that was the big number of the show. I want it to be
Molly,
at least contending for my favorite movie or musical.
You're gonna love the second movie we watch in May, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Oh.
So, what have people been saying about this movie? Critics on Rotten Tomatoes, the critics' consensus at a 94% says lights up for In the Heights, a joyous celebration of heritage and community fueled by dazzling direction and sing-along songs. Carlos Aguilar from The Atlantic wrote, for all that the film celebrates the specificity and beauty of Washington Heights, it also telegraphs that the neighborhood's precious, incubated culture hinges on not the physical space itself, but the people who inhabit it. Which is very beautiful. It actually gives me Fiddler on the Roof energy of being like, you are, Anatevka is who you are. You will take this culture with you when you go. It is not tied to this place that you live, which I think is lovely. David Rooney from The Hollywood Reporter says a slight imbalance in pacing and energy doesn't diminish the pleasures of this fizzy entertainment, especially when Ramos is center screen plying his megawatt charm. Have to agree. We love Anthony Ramos. My favorite part about this segment of the show is Molly and RJ just give up on responding to me. So I just talk to myself for about 5 minutes.
It's because in the intro, we're not supposed to interrupt you, but I always do. And then I feel bad about it. And so I feel like I should give you this time to speak uninterrupted.
On Letterboxd, Ethan Dayton gave it 4 stars and said that was the longest episode of How I Met Your Mother ever.
That's pretty funny.
What? Oh my god.
Karen H did not rate it any stars, but she did say good cheesy, huge musical numbers, bad cheesy, extremely conspicuous Tide pen endorsements.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, they probably did get money for that, didn't they?
Yeah.
Or Cokes. I think Coke also probably paid because
there's a lot of Coke.
There's a lot of glass Coke situations.
Which so classic.
A glass
glass Coke from a bodega? There's nothing better.
And if it's imported from Mexico where they use the real sugar.
Sugar cane?
Yes.
Honey. None of that high fructose corn syrup shit. Paul Klein gave it 4 stars and said, this is my favorite. I am not throwing away my shop.
I don't like it.
That's my best Lin-Manuel impression.
I think that song is way overhyped. I think it's like the worst song in Hamilton.
Agreed.
There's my take.
The thing I was going to say earlier is in the movie, she goes to visit the apartment that she's trying to apply for.
Yes.
And the realtor says, you need to have 40 times the rent.
I know. I wrote that in all caps in the script too.
And I said, this had to be, she flubbed a line. Shit, they didn't know. What
Adam
is this?
Had to rewind and turn on closed captioning.
Turn on closed captioning. It is 40 times the rent. So I was at work today at my real estate job. And I did some research. So in New York City specifically, that is the thing that a lot of real estate agents and apartment landlords use as their like qualifications. Meaning, this is what it means. 40 times the rent is your annual salary before taxes divided by 40 is the maximum amount of like whatever you could like be qualified for rent. So like if you are a person who makes $100,000 before taxes divided by 40, that's $2,500 a month.
Okay. So
just so we're clear on what that means.
Okay, so then that's 40 divided by 12 is 3.33. So it's a third of your monthly income. So that actually is a pretty normal like financial thing. That's insane that they didn't make that clearer, because I wrote in the script like, who in the world in any city of this world would make 40 times what their rent costs? Like, and then to have it be
why
Manhattan
are you renting
on top of that?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
No, Jeff Bezos could buy that apartment and nobody else. Like, what does that? So they definitely needed to be like, unless you can, they needed to somehow communicate that better, because it was an insane thing to say.
They needed to do the like when there's a prescription drug commercial and they just say like all of the side effects really quickly. They needed to do that for all of us who don't live in New York City.
Means if you take your annual income,
and then it's trailing as she starts singing.
And there's just some stock images of random people in the barrio as they're like, and then if you take out your calculator, you will see that
it's back at the salon.
Look
cutting
at your
hair.
Calculate the rate of return.
For more information, please visit
IRS.gov. Happy tax season, everybody. Okay, that was worth it for a one more thing to add about the movie. I'm sorry for trying to rush you through it. Since we said that we didn't like some of the choices in terms of the magical realism of specific musical numbers, if you got to redo one of the musical numbers in this movie and have a different concept, what would your different concept be? And I did think of one this time, so I can start if y'all want time to think.
Please.
Well, since I already said I didn't like the fabric in the Vanessa sequence, I think what could have been cool...
Cheap. Chintzy.
I actually, what I would have liked, and maybe they felt like they couldn't do this because part of it is supposed to be that she's kind of like dreaming of being a designer, but she hasn't quite figured out what her clothes want to be yet. So maybe they felt like they couldn't go this far, but it would have been really cool to have her walking and then see her like transform the people on the street into the clothes that she would put them in. So we could see like more of her full vision of being a designer rather than just like fabric is a metaphor for design. I would have liked to see her like maybe, and also that we could see her taking inspiration from what people were already wearing and how she would like elevate that idea.
A montage.
Yeah, because remember when they were showing like the map of like, it was like an overlaid map as the train was going down.
Yeah.
Well, the iPad, but like on It Won't Be Long Now, but it was like, it looked like a mood board design. So it looked like she was like fashion design. So I was like, then maybe like if it could have been more pastiche like that of like, I'm seeing like a sketch walk to life, or like, I'm seeing the stuff around me and
Yeah.
it's turning into fashion sketches.
Or maybe if she's like not fully there, it could be like she changes one item of clothing on everyone. So she like gives somebody a hat and like changes someone else's shirt. So she's like not got the full ensemble, but you like see her little flashes of inspiration. Could have been cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure Adam will
This is
change
really hard.
Paciencia y Fe because he just really
Yeah,
didn't
I
like the
think
way that
he's
they
like-
handled that.
Simplify it, honestly.
Yeah.
Just have her sing at an empty stage.
Just have it be a montage of her dying, her going to the hospital, her in the ambulance.
Seeing her internal organ, like kind of graphics displaying her internal organs. and how they're-
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
an
A
episode of
pumping
House, you know?
heart
Yeah.
that just
Yeah.
I would say the one I don't like, which I said earlier, is the beginning of 96,000 with the like hand animation.
Handimation.
I think it looks dumb. The problem is it's very short. It's like only maybe like
It's just that
45
first-
seconds of the song.
It's the first verse before they go into
and
like,
then it goes into the rest of that song, which I think is like A+ movie musical material. So it's hard for me to think of something that I would do instead. So I think if I was to do anything, I wouldn't necessarily pick that. I think I would pick
So let me just describe you a whole number, but that's not my choice.
He's trying to get us over that three-hour mark.
I just
Thank
gotta
you.
get to 3 hours.
Well, let me talk about the songs that we didn't discuss. Champagne is a oneer, meaning it was all in one take. I wanted to point that out, but didn't get a chance to. No, actually, I would say When You're Home,
RJ
I
and
think
I
is
both
just
fully left the screens that were up.
I'm like, okay, I think Adam's still talking.
I'm being attacked on this podcast today.
Everyone write in and tell us that we're right and Adam's wrong.
Just write in anyway. Just write in
Just
and
write
say
in,
anything
period.
so we
We'd
know
love
the
to get
email
an
works.
email, please. Give us an email.
Just want to know the email works.
Okay. I would say the song I would change is When You're Home, but unfortunately I don't have an idea because I wasn't given enough advance notice of what the closer would be to come up with anything. But I think When You're Home doesn't really have a concept, which I thought was like it doesn't even have anything magical about it.
Remind me of what number that is.
Exactly,
What's
that's
happening?
the thing.
It's the song where they're like walking through the neighborhood,
the playground,
and
Okay.
it's Benny
their first
and
song
Nina.
together. Benny
yeah.
and Nina, yeah.
I have a thought, but how about RJ? Do you have an idea, and then Adam could have more time to think about his answer?
Yeah, there is a song that was omitted that I felt like I think should have been included, and it could have been helped enhance the concept of the existing song that's in the show right now. It's after Abuela dies, the like candlelight vigil. It's called Alabanza, where the whole kind of community sits outside her building to sing to her and like, pay their respects. In the musical, Kevin actually goes on the dispatch in his office and announces it through the dispatch to the neighborhood that Abuela Claudia, and it's a song called Atención, and it's just like literally 5-6 lines, but it's just a very sweet thing of like Abuela Claudia had just passed away, and that kind of that concept of like the community, I think would have been like a really nice kind of touch, because even though we did get a cool scene of the dispatch in the beginning, obviously to introduce Benny, and then like during the blackout of Benny and Kevin working together to kind of help the taxis, it would have been a nice kind of like full circle to like show that like it is going to be a big sacrifice that Kevin's like the Rosario taxi like the cab company will go away, because it also is a part of the community. So I thought that would have been nice to add.
Yeah.
I don't have an idea. I was listening to RJ.
Thank you.
I feel like Nina keeps saying this thing about listening to her block, and it felt like it didn't go anywhere. It would have been cool if in that number we like heard the ambient sounds kind of turn into the music somehow or something.
Very the beginning of Hello Dolly, when the footsteps are the like the rhythms. Do you remember that in Hello Dolly?
Sorry, I should have been
the
reviewing
beginning of
Hello
Music
Dolly.
Man, where they speak like the train
Yes,
sounds.
they speak like the train in the Music Man.
Because I remember in the teaser, she does like, I just want to listen to my. I mean, they show that clip, but like, and the teaser made it seem like she is gonna like let the ambient sounds play out, but it really doesn't happen in the movie.
Yeah. So that would have been cool,
Yeah,
or just cut that number.
The beginning of Hairspray.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 tsh, boom.
I mean, they do it in the beginning of the opening song, where it's like the rhythm of the song is like by the sweeping or the walking.
Woke up today. Well, thank you so much for listening to the show. I think we all still really enjoyed the film. So we definitely recommend you watch it if you haven't, even though you've probably been spoiled that unfortunately Snape does kill Dumbledore in this film.
Sorry about that.
Beth dies. By the way. So
a spoiler for like a 200-year-old.
Joe doesn't
makes
pick.
it back.
Good. So definitely take a watch. It's on HBO Max in case you're curious as to where you can see it for free. I also think it's technically on Hulu, which I think is very strange that you can see it both places. But
sometimes I feel like it shows up on Google that it's on Hulu, but that means if you have HBO Max through Hulu.
Oh, maybe that's what it is then. Yeah. Okay. So it's on HBO Max. Or you can always rent it from wherever you rent movies.
Yeah. Go to your local Blockbuster.
Yeah. Go to your local, what are those called? Redbox. Go to Redbox. I'm excited for our next episode, which is a movie I've never seen before, which is crazy. Do you remember what it is?
I don't.
I have never seen it, so I'm excited.
I don't know.
And I have a very fun story as to my relationship with this show because my mom is a crazy person. And can't wait for that. Can't wait for Molly to tell us the 1-minute summary because it will be her turn, which means that the following movie, unfortunately, will be my turn, and we all remember that that's Greatest Showman. So I'm already mad that that's how it's playing out. But
you know what? Fate has its way, doesn't it?
I would like to go out on a song, but I don't know any of the songs well enough to sing them. So RJ, pick a song to sing.
Lights up on Washington Heights, up at the break of day, I wake up and I got this little punk I gotta chase away. Crack the dawn and right down the awning. Hey y'all, good morning. Good. Oh, we already did that one. I forgot.
No me diga.
Que sé yo, parara. I don't know.
Carnaval del barrio. Carnaval del barrio. Doo-doo-doo.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think you've all heard about the man who actually paid $1 million for a movie story. His name, of course, Samuel Goldwyn. And the story he bought was Guys and Dolls. Now, because I felt that this was the greatest musical I'd ever seen, I actually made 4 flying trips to the Pacific Coast to film excerpts of the show for my Sunday night TVer over the CBS network. And it is my idea of a wonderful picture. Now, incidentally, that $1 million check that Sam wrote was only a starter. Before he was through, Guys and Dolls had cost him $5.5 million. And in Runyon's language, that is a lot of lettuce. Now, what does Sam Goldwyn get for it? Well, among other things, he got Damon Runyon's world of fabulous characters.
The jails must be empty tonight. Can anybody be missing? Terry the horse, Liver Lips Louie, Angie the ox, Society Max. And here is a face for which I cannot supply a name. May I ask where you come from?
East Cicero, Illinois.
And what is your occupation there?
I'm a scoutmaster.
Marlon Brando never danced or sang a note in his life. until he met Goldwyn. But he sings and he dances in Guys and Dolls, and he'll fracture you. Gene Simmons, too, is a dramatic star, not a singer. But as Sister Sarah of the Mission Doll, she's adorable and her singing voice is terrific. Together, these two generate excitement that's electric. Let me show you what I mean.
Would you be open to a proposition?
I've had those, no.
Don't flatter yourself. I'm talking business. I am in a position to supply you with the raw material you need for your work, namely sinners.
How?
Frank Sinatra has amazed the entertainment world with his dramatic prowess. Now to prove he's still the top song interpreter, here he is as Nathan Detroit.
Adelaide, Adelaide, ever-loving Adelaide is taking a chance on me.
You're at it again, you're running the game. I'm not gonna play second fiddle to that. I'm sick and I'm tired of stalling around. I'm telling you now that we're through when I think of the time gone by.
Adelaide, Adelaide.
I tried.
Adelaide.
I could honestly die.
Vivian Blaine was a comedy sensation in the original cast. She's even funnier in the picture. With four great stars like these, Goldwyn needed a writer and a director just as big. He found both these talents in four-time Academy Award winner Joseph L. Mankiewicz. The result is sheer greatness. One short scene will show you what Joe Mankiewicz can do with a few simple words.
Whatever you do, wherever you go,
Why, Sister Sarah, why?
I want to be with you.
The world's full of souls closer to salvation than mine.
Anytime, anywhere.
Easier to save and much more worth saving.
You.
The music of Frank Lesser is always a part of the story. Michael Kidd's imaginative dance direction even tops the exciting job he did in 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. Now he has the Goldwyn girls to work with. Of all the grand entertainment ever produced by Samuel Goldwyn, an Academy Award winner himself, this is his best. With its humor and drama, its songs, its beauty, no musical ever made can compare to Guys and Dolls. And with stars like Marlon Brando, Gene Simmons, Frank Sinatra, Vivian Blaine, and a cast of hundreds in CinemaScope and color, the Toast of the Town predicts that Guys and Dolls will be the toast of the world.
Discovering voices, building worlds. The Ampliverse.